Ariana lies on the floor at night, with blood gushing from her, and thinks about when everything started. Elena walks closer and covers her mouth while shouting that she was about to run someone over. She says if her sister dies, there will be no one to make the songs she plans to sing in the future. Edward answers that they cannot ignore the matter because Ariana wanted to report them. As blood keeps flowing, she thinks about her younger sister and brother while listening to their talk. Lucas then walks in and asks who is there. She keeps thinking about even her husband. He looks at her and apologizes to Ariana because he once loved her, even though she was dull and boring. He says another woman with a face like hers now acts sweet toward him, and he blames her sister for being rich. He holds Elena in his arms while she touches her pregnant stomach and tells her sister that she is carrying her brother-in-law's child. Ariana thinks about how the people she trusted are now standing against her. That betrayal hurts more than anything. Edward bends down and asks if she is okay because she is losing a lot of blood. He holds an agreement paper and says the blood will help seal it. She lifts her weak hand and presses her bloody finger onto the paper. He thanks her and says he will use her wealth well. She thinks about how cruelly everyone betrayed her. He then says he will play the song she made at her funeral. Ariana wishes for one more chance before she dies. She closes her eyes and falls into darkness. Suddenly, she opens them again in shock as a plate drops from her hands. Sophie quickly rushes over and asks if she is fine while picking up the fallen food. She says she should have handled the work herself. Ariana asks what is happening, and the maid explains that the Marquis of Pettigrew requested tea and had refreshments prepared. She asks if they mean her husband, and the servant happily says the wedding has not happened yet, and he is waiting in the garden. Ariana thinks about how she has already been married to Lucas for 5 years and remembers dying after betrayal. As she walks outside, she wonders if she is dreaming or seeing a final hallucination. She then hears Elena and Lucas talking. She says she is upset because her sister's wedding date with her sister is set. He tells her not to think that way because soon they will live under the same roof. Ariana overhears the talk and wonders if this is a dream or not. She realizes that Lucas and Elena started their relationship before the wedding and keeps asking herself how long the lie has lasted. Just then, Edward appears and calls out to her. She answers by calling him brother. He tells her to come to his room after tea time and reminds her about today's lesson. She thinks about how the Lopez family is famous for music, yet her brother never received the talent and still interfered by claiming he could improve the songs she created. While she keeps thinking, he asks why she is not answering. She remembers how many songs he stole from her while her younger sister performed them at the Lopez Opera House, built by their grandfather. Even though she lived only for them, she suddenly asks what year, month, and day it is. He answers that it is November 27th, year 325. She realizes it is exactly 5 years before the day she died. She sees this as a chance to protect her music and take revenge. Then she smiles and says she has a new musical idea and asks if he wants to hear it. In her mind, she decides she will pull them all into darkness. Ariana later sits in a room and begins to play the piano. Edward says he expects nothing special because she knows little about music. She thinks she has heard those same words too many times. She smiles and agrees that compared to him, she is ignorant. He feels pleased and says that understanding her place may be her only good trait. He tells her to hurry and play. While touching the keyboard, she wonders what kind of music she created at that time and asks herself if she can truly take cruel revenge on the family she loved. As she plays, everyone in the house hears the sound and enjoys it. He becomes shocked by the music. Sophie walks over and praises the performance. Then Lucas and Elena arrive. He asks what that performance was. She notices the mud on his leg and smiles at him while thinking he is disgusting. She explains that the piece is an improvisation. Her sister says the song is wonderful and thinks it suits her voice. She then complains that the range is too low to show her full skill. Ariana answers that it is a pity because she already has the perfect title. When asked for the name, she smiles and calls it The Aria of the Adulterous Woman. That title says everything without saying too much. Elena asks what kind of title Ariana has chosen and says it sounds too vulgar. She asks if she truly thinks so, and she agrees. Ariana says she thought her sister already understood. When asked what she means, she explains that a vulgar title makes it stronger because affairs have always caught people's attention throughout history. She still questions how such a strange name could exist. Edward then says it is not a bad idea. Elena calls out to her brother, but he asks what is wrong and says Ariana is right because the title will create attention. She argues that the title is too strange, but he suggests giving it a try. Ariana then says no one else could sing this aria except her sister. She becomes speechless and starts to stammer. Before she can finish, Ariana asks if she can go upstairs and begin working right away because she feels she can remember the whole piece from beginning to end. He asks if she truly remembers everything and says he will refine it after she finishes composing. Lucas becomes pleased and tells her she can lead the opera from start to finish. She smiles and agrees to do her best. In her mind, she promises she will never let them steal her music again. Elena asks Lucas if he truly plans to stage an opera with such shocking content. He explains that the performance is important because Dante Heigenberg has returned to the capital. Another grand show will happen at Paradise, so they must not lose sight of it. Ariana hears the name and wonders if Dante could help her. She asks if he is truly returning. Lucas confirms it and says he came back after much bloodshed and had just killed barbarians. Elena reacts in shock. He pats her head and says she should stay away from such a man. She says rumors claim he spends every night with female singers. Ariana then thinks about Paradise. She knows it is a cabaret where common people drink and enjoy shows, while the Lopez Opera House serves noblemen. Paradise is known as a sanctuary for the fallen, and Dante Heigenberg owns it. He is also a feared war hero. She remembers a past meeting where he asked why she wasted her talent on people who did not value her. He told her to stop being foolish and come to him because he might treasure her like a jewel. She realizes he was the only person who noticed her family used her music. She decides she must meet him. Later, she arrives at Paradise and thinks that this place truly is the sanctuary of the fallen. Paul walks up and asks who she is looking for. When she sees him, she realizes he is Heigenberg's assistant. However, Ariana tells Paul that she is the eldest daughter of the Lopez family and asks to meet the Duke. He lowers his head and says, "The Duke does not meet anyone without an appointment." She begs him to give her only 5 minutes and says that if she fails to gain his interest, she will repay him. Later, Dante Heigenberg sits with Paul behind him. He folds his arms and reminds her that she begged for 5 minutes. She politely greets him, and he repeats her words with little interest. She thinks that 5 years ago he would not have known who she was. She explains that she came to offer him something and promises it will take only 5 minutes. He replies that he already has too much and wants nothing from her. She quickly brings out a kalimba and asks him to listen before judging. Before he can finish speaking, she begins to play. The sound fills the room and he becomes shocked by the music. She watches his face and wonders if it is not good enough. Then he suddenly offers 5 billion cardina. Her eyes widen in surprise. He tells her to hand it over with the full score and every part included. She thinks that such a price for one piece of music is unbelievably generous. She thanks him, but says that money is not what she wants. Instead, she asks to become his wife. That request changes everything. Dante asks if she is truly offering one song in exchange for marriage. Ariana asks if he has listened to the music from the Lopez Opera House and explains that she created every piece there. He says he believed the Count of Lopez made them all. She tells him that her brother only made small changes while she did the real work. He admits the truth sounds tempting and says she is more interesting than he expected. She explains that she wants to take back her music from her brother, but the Empire's law stops unmarried women from owning property or rights to their own work. He quickly understands that she wants him to become her legal shield, so her music cannot be taken. She agrees and asks him to marry her for 1 year until she finds a way to protect her work and finish her revenge. She promises to become the exclusive composer for Paradise. He smiles and says the place of his wife is worth more than 5 billion cardina. She tells him he can use her as a reason to reject a princess's proposal. She promises not to ask anything from him or expect marriage duties. He warns her not to hide anything while making a deal. She repeats that she only needs protection and then quietly asks if he can also pretend to truly love her. He laughs and says he likes her courage. She suddenly wonders how he already knows her name. He stands and says he dislikes her final condition because he never pretends. He says even a temporary marriage must feel real. Then he tells her that if she becomes his wife, she must act like it fully and asks if she can handle that. Then Dante tells Ariana that if she cannot do it, she should just run away. She looks at him and thinks that he is trying to scare her, but she cannot back down now. She tells him that it is fine and she can handle it. He smiles and pulls her closer by the waist. He tells her to relax. He leans close and says that acting like prey about to be eaten is not attractive. She opens her eyes wide and says she is not nervous. He lets her go and says she has courage. Then he turns to leave and says they will discuss the details soon. She feels surprised. As he walks through the door, Paul asks why he pretends not to know her and if he also wants to watch the opera. He tells him to stay quiet and says he will watch it since he has time. Paul sighs and thinks about the 2-hour performance. Then he remembers how he first met her. He wonders if she is pretending not to know him or if she truly forgot him. He thinks he cannot tell which one is worse. Later that night, Ariana stands alone and sighs. She thinks that one meeting with him already drains all her energy, and now she has been chosen to become his wife. She wonders if it is a good choice. She reminds herself that he is the person Lucas envies the most, and the same person Elena wants the most. Because of that, she believes he is the one she needs right now. She remembers how close they were when he pulled her near and admits that she was truly nervous. She thinks that without knowing that secret, she would have been even more afraid. As she walks up the stairs, she meets Sophie. She notices she is back and hears that the Marquise has arrived. She asks since when, and learns he has been in the drawing room for about 2 hours. She wonders what he could be doing in a house without his fiancée. Then she says she will change her outfit and come downstairs soon. While heading to her room, she runs into Elena and Nora walking toward her. They both seem happy. Then the maid asks if she is receiving another gift. Elena smiles and says that he prepared a surprise for her. She says he even made jewels from pearls. When Ariana hears about the pearls, she feels surprised. Then she notices her and asks where she went because the outing took so long that the Marquis almost wasted his time. She says not to worry because she entertained him well enough. She smiles, thanks her, and warns her to be careful next time. That leaves her confused, so she asks what she should be careful about. She explains that when an unmarried woman spends too much time with her sister's fiancé, rumors may begin. She smiles and says they are only spending time together as a family. She asks why she is acting this way and reminds her that he values her talent like a precious gem. She says nobody understands her artistic world as he does, so even if it makes her uncomfortable, she should understand. She thinks that she has always spoken like this, as if they share a special bond that nobody else can understand. She feels it is not only about a man and woman, but something she calls an artistic connection. Then she asks if she has memorized the tempo marking yet. She looks shocked and asks what she means. She replies that it is already a miracle she even memorized musical notes. She becomes angry and says she seems to be in a bad mood today. Then she says she will go downstairs first and tells her to take her time getting ready or rest before coming down. She smiles and thinks that she is an idiot who does not know what is really happening. Inside her room, Ariana closes the door behind her. As she walks in, she notices strands of hair. She picks one up, smiles, and says it is really amazing. After changing clothes, she walks to where Lucas and Elena are together. They seem to enjoy themselves. He says she may have sung the pitch wrong. She replies that he should stop teasing her and asks if it is true. Then she walks closer and calls him my Marquis. He looks at her, stands up, and asks why she is late because he has been waiting. She tells him she has good news and asks him to guess what it is. She says it seems that her sister has a lover. Then she brings out the strand of hair, leaving both of them shocked. She says she found it in the dressing room and adds that it has the same color as her hair. That reveals changes everything. Ariana questions Lucas and asks if the hair is really his, wondering if he entered her dressing room. He quickly admits that he did because he became bored while waiting and decided to look through his fiancé's wardrobe. She seems surprised and asks why he would do that, but he explains that he wants to know more about the woman he will soon marry. He says that since the wedding is coming soon, he wants to buy her a pretty dress and even jewelry. She stays calm and thinks to herself that his words are clearly meant to attract her. Even so, she smiles, moves closer, and asks if he truly means it. He answers that as the future Marchioness, she deserves such gifts. Just then, Willem arrives and reports that a jeweler from Pierre has come. She turns in surprise and asks if he has already called a jeweler for her, and he confirms that he did. She happily says she is pleased, while Elena quietly becomes upset. Soon, they sit together as the jeweler presents the items and explains that the initials requested have been engraved. Seeing them, she thinks the initials look perfect and thanks him warmly, saying she feels deeply touched. He watches her smile and quietly thinks that her bright expression makes her look much more beautiful. He then says he prepared everything carefully and feels happy seeing her reaction. She then notices extra pieces beside the necklace and asks about them. The jeweler explains that they are matching earrings and a bracelet that usually come as a set. She praises them and says they are beautiful, making him happy that she noticed their value. She then thanks her future husband for the full set, but he becomes uncomfortable and says she should only choose one as a sign of his sincerity. At the same time, he secretly worries about the cost. Unable to stay longer, Elena suddenly stands up and says she needs to practice singing before leaving in anger. He watches her go and thinks about how difficult it is to please both women, deciding he can simply buy another necklace later. As the day continues, Ariana sits alone and cleans the jewelry while thinking about how strange it feels to own such luxury. She remembers that even as the Marchioness of Pettigrew, getting money for basic needs was difficult because opening his wallet was never easy. She then calls Willem and asks how much everything could sell for, and he estimates it may be worth around 15 million cardina. However, our girl quietly tells Willem to sell all the jewelry given by the Marquis. He becomes shocked by her request, but she explains that it must remain a secret for now that she has sold everything. She then asks him to find a good information guild. Another day arrives, and Leo stands inside a shop saying the owner is away and the place is not open. He suddenly notices her walking in and quickly hides his face while thinking that he never expected to meet her there. She explains that she came to make a request, and he seems surprised that she still entered despite the shop being closed. After hearing his voice, she quietly wonders why it sounds higher than before. He asks her to sit down and introduces himself as Lionard, claiming to be the owner of the guild. At the same time, he thinks to himself that the York Information Guild belongs to the Heigenberg family, and that hiding his true identity is better. He then asks what kind of request she has, and she explains that she wants proof of her cheating fiancé's affair. He reacts with surprise when hearing that her fiancé is involved with her younger sister. She calmly explains that she plans to catch them and end the engagement. Seeing his shocked face, she wonders why he is so surprised, because love triangles are common and often bring business to information guilds. She explains that the pair do not hide their meetings and even spend time together in her dressing room and garden, making them easy to catch. She adds that cameras can be used while thinking about how photography was still new during this time. She reflects that many people fear photographs because of rumors that a soul can become trapped inside a picture. Because of this fear, she believes the affair will not be carefully hidden. She then requests a photograph of them together and asks for it to be completed within a fortnight because she wants to end the engagement and prepare for a new marriage. He suddenly comments that she plans to leave one man and quickly move to another, asking if her future husband must be reliable and perfect. He says that living happily with children would be the best revenge. She immediately replies that such a future is impossible because her new husband cannot have a physical relationship and is impotent. He seems disappointed but promises the request will be finished on time. After she leaves, Leonard enters and asks when he arrived. He answers that he has already accepted a case and will investigate it himself later. Leonard questions why he would handle it personally when he is the head of the York Guild. Just then, Dante appears, surprising him because his presence was not noticed. He then questions why she believes he cannot embrace a woman and wonders why she thinks he is impotent. Wait, what? Leo replies that he does not understand why Lady Lopez would have such a misunderstanding. Dante remembers the expression she had when she claimed she was not nervous, and he thinks about how confident she seemed. He starts to wonder if she believed he was someone she could never touch, and that thought frustrates him deeply. He becomes annoyed and questions how she could think such a thing. Outside, Ariana thinks to herself that she has already placed the bait with their faith, and now it is time to move toward revenge. She reflects on the 3 goals of her outing. The first is visiting the Information Guild. The second is speaking with him about the contract marriage. The third is searching for a suitable soprano. She believes this last goal is the most important because she plans to destroy the Lopez Opera House and her family so completely that they can never rise again. She decides that music will become her weapon of revenge. At the same time, she knows that even the best music means nothing if nobody performs it. She admits that Elena is an excellent soprano, and she remembers that 5 years later, she became the greatest singer in the Empire except for one person. She quietly thinks she may know where that person is. I like how every move she makes already feels part of a bigger plan. A girl walks down the road and suddenly notices a beautiful crying voice nearby. She becomes confused because even though it is only crying, the sound carries a strong volume and deep resonance. She then remembers that Elena once had a cruel habit of crushing young female singers before they could grow. She recalls how she insulted Rosalind by saying even a passing pigeon could sing better, and mocked her appearance by comparing her hair to a burned Rosalind. Back in the present, she removes her layette and gently gives it to the crying girl, telling her she might catch a cold if she stays outside like that. The child thanks her kindly and promises to repay the favor one day. She then realizes that this is Rosalind at a young age. She quietly studies her and asks what happened and why she is crying. The girl looks troubled and begins to answer with worry. However, Rosalind explains that one day, a chance finally came to her because she dreamed of becoming a singer. She received an offer to perform at Paradise, which belongs to Dante Heigenberg. During that night, she even met the famous soprano, Elena. She remembers how the singer looked at her and the man beside her and asked if they were lovers, while also praising his playing skill, but saying his voice would not suit him well. Even though the words were not kind, she still believes she can prepare carefully for the stage during the time she has left. Then everything suddenly changes when her lover disappears without warning and leaves only a letter saying he has found his true love. Hearing this, Ariana immediately thinks that it must have been Elena's doing. Still crying, the young singer explains that she searched for another musician, but nobody wanted to perform with someone who had no experience. She feels it is unfair and wonders how she could lose such an important chance. Our girl reaches out and asks what time she's allowed to perform at Paradise. Rosalind becomes surprised and suddenly realizes she still does not know who this woman truly is, while quietly admiring her beautiful hair. She quickly answers that her performance time is from 4 to 5 o'clock. After checking the time, she realizes there is not much left before the show begins. She is then told to get up because they must go to the stage immediately. Shocked, she asks what is happening, and she is told to warm up her voice while the rest will be handled for her. She becomes confused and asks what that means, only to hear that Ariana will accompany her while she sings. She reacts with excitement but worries because the chosen song about possession is known to be very difficult. She explains that the accompaniment has many hard parts. Watching her think, she begins to regret mentioning the difficulty because she fears this miracle helper may leave. She even offers to sing an easier song or a simple nursery rhyme if it means standing on stage. Still, she is told they will keep about possession. Ariana quietly remembers that this song was the one that first made the Lopez Opera House successful. She thinks about how the changing keys match rising emotions throughout the piece. When asked again if it is truly fine to perform such a difficult song, she calmly reveals that she composed it herself. In the next scene, Ariana is at Paradise thinking that this is how the place looks at this time. She feels the stage is a complete mess, and she knows it is normal because Paradise is not an official performance venue. Even so, she finds it surprising that this place will shake the empire 5 years later. She also recalls rumors that Dante Hagenberg never planned to build Paradise for performance, but only cared about music and sound itself. She concludes they cannot perform like this and goes to a worker. The worker asks what she needs, and she says she wants to change the stage. He is surprised and asks if she means the stage. She explains that the stage is too close to the seats, the reflection position is wrong, and the lighting cannot be used properly. She also says it is uncomfortable for both the singer and the audience. While she speaks, other workers talk about her and guess she is the accompanist, while mocking Rosalind's appearance and calling her rustic. Ariana continues giving instructions, and even says that if the level is too bad, they should lower it halfway through. In the next scene, the audience at Paradise talking before the performance. They hear that a new singer named Rosalind is performing today, but they do not know her and think she is just temporary. Standing there, Rosalind thinks to herself that this is her chance to show her song, and she must do her best. She also believes she will succeed with her benefactor. She looks at Ariana, who plays the piano, and she feels the music is special from just one phrase. She becomes focused and thinks she must give everything. She then starts singing about possession, a story about a heroine who falls in love with a priest and feels a strong desire for possession that no jewel or man can replace. She sings with strong emotion, saying she wants that shining person even if the shine fades, asking why they cannot be together. The audience becomes stunned and starts asking who she is, while saying the song is great and the piano sounds like art. However, we see more people gathering to listen as Rosalind continues her performance. She thinks to herself that the crowd is growing, and the next part is very important because it shows the heroine fully embracing her first feverish love. She sings about wanting someone to belong only to her, saying, "If only you could be mine." Suddenly, her voice starts to hurt. She becomes worried and thinks her throat pain may be because she stayed on the cold floor too long. She feels shocked and panicked because the next part is a high note, and she fears her voice will break. Just then, Ariana changes the piano and plays different lines that are not in the song. Rosalind turns in surprise because she realizes this is not in the original music. She understands Ariana is helping her gain time and is amazed by how beautiful the accompaniment sounds. She starts thinking she can improve the performance and decides to push forward for her benefactor. She clears her throat and continues singing, saying she will never regret again, and only she will stay by that person's side. As she finishes, the audience begins clapping loudly, and she smiles happily while Ariana also smiles. The audience begins talking excitedly about the performance. Some say they are intrigued and ask who the singer is, while a woman says her voice is no joke. Others agree and say only someone like Elena Lopez could match that level. Two men discuss the music and say the long interlude stays in their minds even after hearing it. They also wonder who the accompanist is, but no one knows because the face is hidden under a cloak. As Ariana stands up to leave, she hears someone say, "Miss Lopez." Rosalind moves closer and thinks that the person who created About Possession must be her benefactor. She happily asks if she is Miss Lopez, and she replies that her name is Ariana Lopez. Just then, Dante Hagenberg arrives and questions if she is a woman, and says she is using his space to promote her singer. She thinks she only wanted to build some reputation before sending gifts to Elena as a soprano. She apologizes for performing without permission, but he holds her face and tells her to use everything from him, because he also plans to use her fully. Everyone watching becomes shocked and confused, asking who he is. He then whispers to her if she is still not afraid. She thinks she might get divorced, but decides this is also a test and says she is not afraid. He looks into her eyes and calls her tough, saying he would punish her insolence, but they are still engaged. He kisses her forehead and says they will see after marriage. I'm really gingered up right now. In another scene, Edward is at a bar gambling. He says he is feeling confident and goes all in. Just then, he hears his name, Edward Lopez. He turns and sees Elias. Elias calls him my lord. Outside the bar, Elias speaks to him and says, tomorrow is the first rehearsal for the St. Verdito Festival Opera, and asks if he should be in a place like this at such a time. Elias also asks if the Lord is an investor in the Lopez house. Edward laughs and says it does not matter because he has already completed the position, and now it is up to the performers to execute it. He thinks to himself that Elias is only acting like this because he is an investor. Elias then says he is looking forward to the performance after hearing the interpretation of About Possession. Edward becomes surprised and repeats the word interpretation. Elias explains that while the original is good, he felt the flute part near the end was unnecessary, and that it was removed and replaced with a longer interlude. Hearing this, Edward becomes disappointed, lowers his head, and thinks that the part he created was called unnecessary, feeling angry but holding himself back so the opera can still succeed. The next day, Elena is looking at a newspaper in anger. The news says Dante Heigenberg is openly showing affection with a mysterious woman, and it is described as his first public romantic acknowledgement. She becomes angry and asks who this girl is, saying she is not a princess but a shabby-looking woman playing a love game with him. She then remembers how he always attended her performances and how she believed he was there only to see her. She recalls telling maids to invite the Duke to the after-party, believing he would come as her partner, but he ignored her without any response. She also remembers the humiliation of people talking about her partner being the Duke. As her anger grows, Nora comes to her and tells her not to worry, saying the flower of the opera is not the singer but Elena herself. She looks up and asks what she means, and Nora explains that she is reacting because of the article. However, Elena looks at the newspaper again and sees a report saying Rosalind has a successful singing debut. She becomes shocked and calls her an unsophisticated girl. She remembers what she said to Rosalind and her lover and thinks to herself that she tricked the boyfriend into ruining her performance, yet Rosalind still debuted. She feels annoyed and squeezes the paper tightly. I can feel her frustration. In the next scene, our girl is rehearsing with the violin. She asks for it to be played a little louder. Elena watches her from far away and thinks she is very irritating, saying she is not even the main composer, but acts like the main character. She also thinks about how someone like her could become a marchioness, blaming her status and wishing she had a better family background. At the same time, Edward approaches, holding his head. Elena asks him how much he has been drinking, but he tells her to be quiet because she is annoying. Seeing that he is drunk, she thinks about playing a prank and tells him their sister has changed. He asks what she means, and she says Rosalind looked shabby before but is now acting like the main composer. She also says Edward is the one who increased the volume of the performance, yet he is speaking freely, and the members are following her too much. Hearing this, Edward becomes angry and shouts at them. As if that is not enough, we see Ariana continuing the rehearsal with the violin. Suddenly, Edward rushes in and knocks her down, shouting why she is standing there when she knows nothing and why professionals are listening to an amateur. He orders the violinists to start again. They play, but he keeps complaining that the sound is too loud and says he still does not like it. He says to start from the beginning again and says he will trust only his instincts. He also says the music is useless and fires them, saying the piece does not need so many violins. Just then, he is hit on the head and falls down. Ariana then tells him his voice stands out too much, calling him a loud drunkard. The next scene, a violinist named Robin is playing in the orchestra. We get to know that his hand is hurting while he plays. As he continues, he thinks to himself that he has no money to repay his old house and cannot go to the hospital. He also remembers that the violin is the only old asset left by his mother, who was a fallen noblewoman, so he must keep playing without showing pain. He fears that if Edward finds out, he will be fired. Just then, Edward shouts for them to move and start playing again, so they continue. He becomes angry and says it is still wrong and orders them to start from the beginning again. Robin thinks to himself that this feels like endless suffering and he must endure it, even though his injury might get worse if he keeps playing. He hopes to see a doctor after the performance. Suddenly, Edward shouts that the violin sound is too loud and says they are all fired. Robin becomes shocked and thinks about how he will lose his living money for next month. As he tries to speak, Ariana interrupts by hitting Edward on the head. Ariana says this endless rehearsal must stop. She adds that her brother forgets everything when he is drunk, so the firing should be ignored. She then tells Robin to give her his hand. He becomes surprised and asks why. She tells him his hand is injured and says she can hear it from the shaking violin sound. She advises him to go to the hospital and says it will heal in a few days if treated, giving him money. Robin thanks her. She then looks at the other violinists and thinks to herself that everyone is exhausted and that Edward treats them harshly like a tyrant, making them afraid to speak about their pain or risk being fired. She feels it is unacceptable and cannot tolerate it anymore. Ariana then asks if they are satisfied with the opera house treatment. Everyone becomes silent. She repeats that all the scores of the Lopez Opera House are actually her work, and they are all shocked. However, Robin reacts in shock and asks what she means. Ariana explains that the aria of the mistress they heard is only an arranged version, and she says the original song is different. She goes to the piano and plays the original piece. Everyone is stunned and thinks it cannot be true, because the emotions expressed through it are much deeper and better. They realize she is the real composer of the Lopez Opera House. She continues playing, then tells them she wants to offer them a new job, where an orchestra will perform instead of her brother. She thinks to herself that the members do not fully trust her yet, so she must convince them. She also tells them they will receive a much better salary than before. The musicians begin to agree, saying they will follow her, and even Luke, the master of the Lopez Orchestra, agrees to join. Robin quickly says he will also follow her and asks to be taken along, and others also agree. She becomes happy and then turns to look at Edward lying down, asking what should be done with him. Robin quickly says they will handle everything, and the others agree to take care of the aftermath so she can go ahead without worry. Ariana thanks them and says she will trust them. In the next scene, Ariana stands outside and thinks that all the members are signing contracts with her, and she feels relieved that she has secured the orchestra as planned. She then receives a letter from the Information Guild marked completed, meaning the request is done. She opens the photo and sees Lucas and Elena acting intimately in a garden walkway. After that, in another scene, we see Elena and Leo sitting together as Leo reports that there are many results. Ariana thinks to herself that his intelligence is strong, but also means the couple was reckless. Leo then says there is more information, and she asks what it is. He says Elena Lopez has been visiting the pharmacy. She thinks it might be because of pregnancy concerns with Lucas, but then she says it looks like contraception and could be used as evidence. Leo corrects her and says it is actually the opposite, and Elena was prescribed fertility medicine. Ariana becomes shocked and repeats it, asking if it is fertility medicine. In the next scene, our girl is thinking to herself that Elena is trying to get pregnant, and that it was planned from the beginning. She believes Elena deceived her, seduced Lucas, and is now pregnant with his child. She also thinks that if Elena could even go as far as running someone over with a car, then there is nothing she cannot do. Just then, she hears Lucas's voice and Dante's voice calling her my bride, and saying she seems relaxed enough to be walking in an alleyway. Dante then says, "Your Grace," and Ariana asks who the man is. He replies while leaving an unconscious man he was holding, and tells her that she did not know she had a tail following her. She becomes shocked and asks if that man was following her, thinking she had no idea. She also wonders if Dante Heigenberg was the one who dealt with him. Dante then says, a lady raised so delicately is an easy target, and since she is involved with the big shot, she must be more careful. She realizes he is right and apologizes, saying she will be more cautious. He then asks why she is crying, and she touches her face but notices she is not actually crying. She explains she is just tired and says wedding preparations are more exhausting than expected. He responds that since she has 2 grooms, it must be even harder, then gently touches her face and asks when she will deal with one of them. She replies that she will proceed with the wedding with Lucas as planned, but she will leave him on the wedding day. He smiles and says that if it were him, he would make it more dramatic and even offers to help. She is surprised and refuses, saying she can handle it herself. He then lets her go. Our girl is now at the jewelry shop putting on a bracelet while she is with Lucas. The seller happily says she has clear skin and that rubies suit her well, and also comments that it is rare to find a man who can afford such expensive gifts. Lucas tells the seller to give it to him and says he cannot do less for his fiancée, adding that the show is already completely sold out. Meanwhile, Ariana thinks to herself that he is only boasting about sold-out tickets while also spending on expensive jewelry gifts. It feels like both of them are playing their own game without noticing the full picture. However, Ariana tells Lucas that she did not sleep well last night, so she is tired and wants to go home quickly. He then notices her and asks if she is crying. She thinks to herself that her eyes may just be watering from too many yawns. Lucas, however, believes she is moved by the gift and thinks she looks cute. He smiles and tells her that when she marries him and becomes Marchioness, she will have plenty more gifts like this, calling her his adorable fiancé. Ariana remembers Dante's words from the night before, when he told her he could crash her wedding, make it invalid, or even grab her waist and kiss her, and asked if she was too scared to go alone and if she could really leave safely. She admits to herself that she is honestly scared, but she also thinks it is too bold to ask Dante Heigenberg to come to the wedding. Back in the present, Lucas and Ariana stand together while he thinks that the investment is expensive but worth it, since the warehouse will soon be full and his returns will grow many times after her performance and the festival. Suddenly, a horse runs toward them, and people shout for everyone to move because it is a mad horse. Lucas shouts and runs away, leaving Ariana behind. She falls down as the horse comes close, but then someone pulls her away just in time. As a result, she hears Dante's voice asking if she is all right and if she is hurt. She looks surprised and asks how he is there. He tells her he cannot take his eyes off her and asks if she still thinks she does not need his help, telling her to say she needs him and not handle everything alone. He reminds her that she should use him fully. Ariana feels her heart become heavy and confused, wondering if her feelings are from fear or because of him. She then tells him she will send him an invitation to the wedding, and he smiles and says he will gladly attend. In the next scene, Lucas is sitting on the ground, exhausted and confused. He wonders why a crazy horse suddenly charged at them. He then calls out for Ariana, asking where she is. He turns and sees her in the arms of another man. Around them, people begin talking, saying the Duke saved the lady and that he is even more handsome than expected. They also wonder why such a gentle man has the nickname Mara. Hearing this, Lucas becomes angry and says it is a disgrace, and blames the four-legged beast. He rushes toward them and calls Ariana his love, saying she must have been very scared. Dante stops him and calls him the Marquis of Pettigrew. Lucas becomes shocked and thinks about how tall the man is. Dante then questions if it is family honor to use a lady as a shield, which makes people around them feel embarrassed. Lucas quickly says that is not true, and claims he was also coming to save Ariana. He then tries to take her hand and says that even if it was not a joke, he would have saved her, and asks if she is hurt. also asking about the ruby bracelet he gave her. Ariana replies that it fell when he tripped, and he gets angry, thinking about how expensive it is. He quickly picks it up from the ground. As a result, Dante tells Ariana he will gift her a new bracelet. Lucas becomes angry and asks why the Duke is giving jewelry to his fiancée, then tells Ariana not to worry because he will buy another one. He then thinks about how expensive it must be. Just then, Leo comes and tells Dante they must leave or they will miss the audience. Dante tells Ariana to contact him if she is injured, and she thanks him for saving her. He kisses her hand and says goodbye until they meet again. Lucas becomes furious and thinks about Dante's actions, feeling possessive and jealous while also realizing Ariana is very beautiful and even more beautiful than Elena. He also thinks it is the first time he feels possessive and wonders if Dante also fell for her. He then tells Ariana to come home with him and stay at the mansion, and says he will come to her room at night. Ariana becomes shocked and thinks he has lost his mind after the horse incident, then tells him her shoulder still hurts from when he pushed her earlier. However, Ariana says she will go home alone today. Lucas tells her that if she is in pain, she should rest, calling her my love. She agrees and turns away immediately. Seeing how she turns, he thinks to himself that she is clearly mocking him, but instead of being angry, he feels like he is losing control and wants to have her. He also thinks that in 5 days the wedding will happen, and then he will have her completely, and he will make her cry for him with her cute mouth. In the next scene, Ariana dresses in a wedding gown while Sophie tells her she looks dazzling and beautiful. She thanks her, and Sophie says she is serious and even worries that the Marquis might fall for her again. Ariana smiles and thinks Sophie is getting angry with her, remembering how she was angry in the past life. She then asks if it is true that Elena and Marquis Lucas had an affair, and she confirms it. Ariana then says she is not marrying Lucas. Sophie says that it is natural. Ariana also says she is thinking of becoming the Duchess of Heigenberg, even if only temporarily. Willem asks what she means, and she explains that she wants to bring back the real Lopez known for music during her contract period with the Duke, and she asks for help. Back in the present, Sophie tells her she will always support her and starts brushing her hair. As if that is not enough, Elena interrupts and says Ariana's skin is pale, so the white dress does not stand out, and she takes the comb from Sophie. Ariana tells Elena she looks very pretty today, and says guests might confuse who the bride is if she looks too plain. Elena replies that since it is her special day, she also wants her to shine, but says the performance is only 3 days away, and she cannot afford to look shabby. She then begins singing dramatically. Ariana listens and says she sings well, but her acting is still awkward, and she says the role should feel more vulgar because the story is about a woman having an affair with her friend's husband. Elena becomes angry and asks if she is crazy and says she has been acting strange. Just then, Lucas's mother enters and asks what all the noise is about. Ariana greets her by calling her the Marchioness of Pettigrins. They all greet her, but Elena quickly tries to help her sit. Lucas's mother refuses and says how dare she touch her, calling her vulgar. Elena apologizes. She then thinks to herself while looking at Elena that with a mother like that, what could she have learned? First, Elena is looking embarrassed. Ariana thinks that her commoner mother is her biggest weakness. Elena is also very afraid of Lucas's mother, the head of the noble family. Elena then apologizes and says she will leave, and she goes away. Lucas's mother then speaks to Ariana and insults her, saying she only treated her face and looks too clean in a wedding dress, and she is too skinny and may not bear a child well. Ariana remembers that in her past life, this woman always harassed her the most. She decides she will not accept it anymore. Ariana replies that a strong seed is needed for good growth. The woman gets angry and says she already feels sorry for her son marrying below his status. Ariana responds that her grandfather was a famous musician and her mother was respected. The woman dismisses it, saying the family became poor and a merchant after her grandfather died, and Lucas saved them with the opera house. Ariana replies that they also benefit from the profits and mentions a moneylender debt, which makes the woman furious. She tries to slap Ariana, but Ariana dodges, and the woman almost falls. Ariana calmly says she should rest and leaves. Ariana is walking in the passage. She thinks she must stay strong before the ceremony so she does not miss the most entertaining part. A voice calls out, saying, "Customer? Customer, it's me." She turns and sees Leo. She asks why he is here. Leo says she looks serious today and tells her she must go somewhere right now. Something is about to happen. Our girl is being told that someone is caught red-handed. She thinks it must be Elena and Lucas, and she cannot believe they are together on the wedding day. In the next scene, we see Lucas and Elena in a room. Elena is crying while he tells her not to cry. She cries more and says Ariana called her vulgar, even though she dressed nicely for the wedding. She asks if Ariana hates her. Peter comforts her and says she is kind, and they will teach Ariana a lesson. Elena calls him her Marquis, and they become intimate. Ariana closes the door outside and thinks seeing this makes her angry. Leo says he already has evidence, but wanted her to see it. Ariana thanks him and feels more determined. Moreover, Edward calls Ariana and asking why she is smiling. She says it is nice to see the family together. He complains about the chaos at the wedding and says she must serve the Marquis properly now that she is part of the family. Lucas then comes to Ariana and says she looks beautiful. She notices him and thinks he is shameless. She points out lipstick on him and he quickly wipes it off, saying it is fruit juice. She thinks he tried hard to hide things before the wedding. She also thinks about his past behavior and how he liked secret risky moments. Lucas asks what she means when she says he finished quickly, and she smiles and tells him he knows. Lucas thinks about Ariana's words and wonders what she knows and why she speaks like that. In addition to this, we see Elena walking in the garden, feeling very happy. She believes the Marquis is already under her control, even though he is engaged to Ariana. She feels excited and thinks it is thrilling. Then she notices Dante and wonders who he is. She thinks a duke like him should not be at the wedding for Lucas, who supports the emperor. She believes he may have come for her. She smiles and goes to him. She greets him as Dante replies that she is the sister of the bride. She feels pleased and thinks he knows her and came for her. She also thinks he is dangerous but attractive and wants to get closer. After that, the priest starts the ceremony. The groom, Lucas, walks in, and the bride, Ariana, follows. People talk about Ariana being the eldest daughter of the Lopez family and say she is more beautiful than expected. Elena feels bad because everyone is looking at Ariana. She also notices Dante looking strongly at Ariana and wonders about his expression. At the altar, the priest asks Lucas if he vows eternal love, and he agrees. Then the priest asks Ariana, and she says no. Everyone becomes shocked and confused. The priest questions what happens next, and Lucas says she is just nervous and asks to continue while holding her hands. The priest continues the wedding and says that if anyone has any objection to the marriage, they should speak now. Dante raises his hand and says he objects and is against the marriage. Lucas becomes angry and confused. Dante walks forward and tells Ariana that it will not work anymore, and everyone becomes confused. Leo in the crowd is shocked and thinks that Dante, the Duke, is also part of Ariana's plan. He remembers earlier when Ariana told him she would break off the wedding today instead of showing evidence first, so Elena could perform in front of everyone and reveal the truth about the song. Leo now wonders why Dante is helping her when he should not be involved. Lucas shouts at Dante that it makes no sense and says Ariana is his bride. Dante replies that he will not give her to a man like him. He tells Ariana to choose the right answer and choose him instead, saying no one will cherish her more. Lucas becomes angrier and tells Ariana not to listen and reminds her that he is the one she loves. Ariana replies that she has decided and says she cannot marry him. Lucas becomes silent and shocked and asks if she is breaking the engagement at the wedding. She answers yes and says she would rather be alone than stay in a bad situation involving her sister. Lucas becomes shocked and thinks she already knew the truth and tries to explain everything while holding her hand. Dante hits him and stops him from touching her. Dante then asks Ariana if she has chosen him. Before she can answer, he pulls her close and says he would have taken her away anyway. Ariana thinks about his strong eyes and wonders if he is acting. Dante says he has wanted her since the first time he saw her, and then kisses her. Hey, it's about to go down, people. The carriage moving on the road with Edward and Elena inside. Elena is crying. Edward gets angry and shouts that Ariana has caused a big mess and the wedding is ruined. He says the guests left in shock and the Marchioness was taken away on a stretcher. He worries the Marquis may become angry and remove support and money. He says the opera is near and blames Ariana and the Duke for the problem. He wonders where Ariana is and briefly thinks she may have remembered something, but he rejects that idea and says it has been too long. They arrive at their destination. Edward gets down and tells Elena to snap out of it and come down. She comes down slowly and says something feels wrong and wonders how Ariana can be with the Duke. He gets stressed and says the opera is in 3 days and everything may fail, including the festival performance. He says Elena is the soprano and tells her to look at the chaos, but insists she must still perform. He also says he will perform well even without Ariana. Then he opens the door and thinks he will find Ariana and force her back into the marriage. But Ariana is already inside and greets him calmly as a brother. Elena and Edward are shocked. Edward asks if it is really her. He becomes angry, grabs her clothes, and asks if she knows what she has done today. Edward is angrily confronting our girl and asking how she can come back home after causing such a mess. She replies that she is packing her things and leaving the house. He is shocked and asks what she just said. She says she is leaving to get married. He asks if she is really going to him, and she says yes. He slaps her and calls her a wretched girl, demanding she repeat herself. She remembers how scary he used to look when angry, like their drunk father, but now she finds it ridiculous and smiles. He gets angrier and raises his hand again, but she kicks him and he falls in pain. Elena runs to him and calls him brother. Ariana remembers her grandfather teaching her to kick a man in the shin for self-defense and thinks it worked. She says she's not marrying Lucas, but Edward calls her crazy. She asks if he is not curious why she ended the engagement. He agrees to listen and asks for the reason. She says Lucas was unfaithful to her younger sister on the wedding day. Elena gets angry and runs at her, denying it and calling it false. She claims Ariana is trying to ruin her life and tells Edward to punish her. Edward thinks it may be true and remembers Elena and Lucas's behavior. Elena keeps shouting that Ariana is ruining her marriage, but Edward suddenly slaps Elena and says she has never been hit before. Elena is shocked and calls him brother. This is turning into a family disaster. Edward shouts at Elena to apologize to her sister immediately. She refuses, and they start arguing. Ariana watches and thinks Elena is shocked, and remembers she was never hit by their father or brother because she always protected her. She thinks Elena may not even understand that. Elena says Edward is going too far, but he calls her the same and slaps her again. He tells her to kneel before Ariana. Elena is shocked and asks if he is mad. Edward says even if nothing happened, she should act like she is sorry if Ariana suspects her. Elena questions him, but he ignores it and thinks he must first calm Ariana, so she will forgive Elena later. Ariana suddenly speaks and says she enjoyed the cheap comedy. Edward and Elena are confused. She says she is leaving and calls herself their audience before walking out. Edward gets angry and runs after her, but a guard stops him and says the Duke ordered that no one should stop Ariana. In addition to this, we see Ariana inside another room. She thinks this is the Duke's room and wonders where he is. Then she sees him by the window and thinks he looks different, almost like a new person because of his appearance. Everything feels more strange now. Dante looks at Ariana and asks what is wrong with her face. She asks what he means, and he asks again who did this to her. He holds her face and says he cannot accept his things being damaged, especially his woman. Ariana hears this and thinks maybe he is worried about her, but she also thinks it is only because of his pride. She apologizes and says it will not happen again. He then asks who did it, and she becomes silent. He guesses it was not her younger sister and says it must be her brother, Edward Lopez. He asks how he should deal with him. She does not answer, only says she kicked his shin. Dante smiles and asks if that was enough for her. She says it is not enough and that it is only the beginning, but thanks him for helping her today. He says he is glad she is satisfied and says he did well. He then touches her lips. She becomes confused and remembers the earlier kiss and feels nervous, telling herself to calm down and that it was only acting. She says people in the city will talk about it and she will repay him later. He says she owes him a lot. She is surprised and asks what he means, and he says she really does not remember. He tells her he will give her time to remember, and she wonders what memory he is talking about and thinks of something from her childhood, but is unsure what it connects to. Furthermore, two women talking are about the wedding incident. One says everyone heard about it. The other says the Marchioness has a neck brace now. They talk about how the Duke took the bride and how strange it is that Ariana managed to reject him. They wonder what will happen to the princess. In addition to this, we see Catherine, the princess, reading a newspaper about Dante taking the bride. She feels angry and says Ariana Lopez is the woman who rejected her. She says she wants to see Ariana's face and is curious about her. Back at the house, Edward shouts that the ledger is actually right. He says it to Willem, and the Red Butler responds, "Yes, master." Then Edward stands up happily. He reads the book and says, "It's enough. The second and third days are completely sold out. Even the scalpers are trading tickets. This is exactly what it means when a bad situation turns into an opportunity." He thinks that the damned woman's mistake becomes a blessing. After that, he asks Willem about the total revenue, and Willem answers, 10 million cardina. Edward folds his arms and thinks that even when his father led the family, such a huge amount never came in. Then he tells Willem to contact the tailor shop and bring their catalog. Willem replies, "Yes, master." Edward thinks that with so much money, he should order more expensive and better clothes, and he smiles. All this time, Willem just watches him from behind. At another scene, Ariana holds a letter and thinks that Edward has already sold out and even ordered a suit to celebrate. She thinks it is an achievement that the Lopez house has never had before. She feels he must think he is on top of the world, like he is floating above the highest clouds. She smiles as she thinks this, but then she also thinks the coming fall will be even more painful. After that, she drops the letter and decides to meet her people. Ariana enters the room and thanks the men for coming. She says she is sorry she has not paid attention to the members lately and asks if practice is going well. Lorelai responds that she is too busy, so there is no problem. Luis also says everything is going smoothly and tells her to trust them, Lady Ariana. Ariana then thinks about them as the stars of the Lopez Opera House. Harry, tall, cool, and charismatic with a handsome face. Ruben, an angelic and cute young boy. And Lorelai, loved by female fans for his unique charm and friendliness. She looks at them and thinks the room is bright. She decides she will take responsibility for changing their futures because they have followed her and trust her. Just then, Paul enters the room and says that the princess's carriage has arrived. Ariana becomes shocked and asks what they should do since the Duke is not present. Luis, Ruben, and Lorelai are also shocked. Ariana thinks the princess arrives without warning and remembers that everyone knows Dante was her first love. She tells them to guide the princess to the VIP room. She also asks Ruben to perform there, and Ruben is shocked but agrees. In the VIP room, Ruben plays music while Ariana and the princess sit together. The princess asks Ariana why she is acting like the lady of the house when she is only a guest. Ariana replies that she knows her position is not suitable, but she is acting on behalf of the Duke. The princess questions if that means a marriage promise has been made, but Ariana stays silent. The princess becomes angry and thinks about the situation with Dante, the news from paradise, and how her people were stopped. She feels shocked that a marriage promise may have already happened and thinks it is unacceptable. Ariana then says the princess should be more suitable as the lady of the house and praises her noble status. She also comments on the dress design, which makes the princess curious. The princess then reveals she designed the dress herself and tells her not to look for it in boutiques. Ariana says she recognized the style and confirms it matches the princess's work. The princess asks how she knows her style, and Ariana says she even has a catalog of her works. The princess is shocked and thinks it is from her time at the Royal Academy. Ariana calls out to her, and the princess suddenly tells her to get rid of the catalog immediately. The princess continues speaking and says Trader Art TV immediately. Ariana asks why. She then replies that it is a work from several years ago, and if seen now, it is full of flaws. Ariana says she also found comfort in that catalog, especially in the piece titled The Girl Holding a Dandelion Siege. She explains the girl's heart is very earnest and cannot let go of something that will drift away. And when she feels lonely about things she cannot have, she often looks at it and feels comfort. The princess then thinks that this feeling of emptiness from wanting something unreachable is exactly what she meant when she painted it, and she is surprised no one has described it so clearly. She shakes her head and tells herself to focus and not forget her purpose. After that, she stands up and points at Ariana, saying she accepts her sharp eye but warns her not to let Dante get caught in scandals. She also thinks that even if she does this, there is no chance between her and Lord Dante. And if she were with him, he would become too powerful as a rival for the throne, and it would make the Empire's politics harder. The princess hears music playing and asks what it is. Our girl asks if she should stop it if it bothers her, and she replies that she is only asking what it is. Ariana explains it is inspired by the princess's work from last year's founding festival. The princess is shocked and asks if it is true. Ariana smiles and says the piece is titled Two Faces of Joy, and it felt very lonely. The princess thinks about how Ariana understands her work so well and asks how she knows this music. Our girl says she composed it herself, and the princess reacts in shock, saying a human composed it. Ariana answers yes, just like the woman who painted that painting. The princess then thinks Ariana planned everything to gain her favor, uses her fan to cover her face, and says she is leaving for today, then walks away. Ariana thinks the princess is weak to compliments, and that after today she will not interfere for a while, even though she was not lying about liking the painting. The princess is easier to read than she thinks. As a result, Ariana observes the princess going into a carriage and continues thinking that it is true that she composed the music after seeing the painting named Two Faces of Joy. She thinks her feelings are genuine. Then, at another place, many people line up, and Elena appears. People in the car shout that Lady Elena looks beautiful today, and they are looking forward to her singing. The wedding event suddenly becomes a hot topic, and it is sold out every time. It feels very surprising. Everything seems to go well just after Ariana's sister disappears. She thinks her sister is like a goddess of misfortune to them. She also questions what is so great about losing her sister and why the Marquis is desperately trying to find her. After today's performance, the Marquis will know who the true treasure of the Lopez Opera House is, and Elena thinks she will become the Marchioness of Pettigrew. Inside the house, Edward shouts that the orchestra members are not showing up, and the performance is about to start without them. Elena asks what he means, and he says they are all absent. She becomes angry and asks how they can all be late on such an important day, and tells him to bring them from their homes. Edward says they are all missing and cannot be found. Elena says she does not know other musicians. Edward shouts at her and asks where they can find someone who can learn the difficult score quickly. Then Lucas appears and suggests they are about to ruin the performance. Edward bows and says he will find a piano accompanist for now. He then pulls Elena closer and tells her to go outside and buy time. Elena is confused but agrees after Edward warns her carefully, saying he has put money on this and will be very angry if a mistake ruins it. Elena goes on stage in front of the crowd, and people murmur because there is no orchestra, only a soprano. She begins singing, and people say her voice is good, but it feels dull without accompaniment. She thinks she is a professional and must perform without failing, or Edward will react badly. Suddenly, she sees Ariana in the crowd and is shocked, thinking why her sister is here. Elena stops singing for a moment, and people in the crowd begin saying, "What is this? Did she miss something? Why isn't she starting again?" Then she stands on the stage and looks at Ariana. Elena thinks in her mind that Ariana wants to see her fail, and that is the only reason she is still there. She refuses to shake. She thinks she is not an amateur and will show her true skills, so she continues singing. She keeps singing and thinks she cannot be brought down, and sees the grand stage made for her. As she sings, something appears on a screen. She wonders what it is and then realizes it is a picture of Lucas and her being intimate. The picture falls to the ground, and she thinks Ariana knew everything all along and had been watching like a mouse waiting in silence. At that moment, Ariana shouts from the crowd to keep singing. Elena's eyes widen, and she thinks about Ariana and the meaning behind it, and she also feels the song is mocking her. Ariana's revenge is already in progression. As a result, people in the crowd become angry. One says, "What is this?" and calls it a waste of money. Another says they were promised something legendary but only got noise on stage. Someone else says they only heard weak music and suggests asking for a refund because they cannot waste money on this opera, and everyone agrees. Then Paul, who is disguised, speaks and suggests they should go to a high-class performance at Madeleine Square and says it is free, asking if they should go there instead. Ariana rushes back out and thinks she is not too late. People become amazed when they see the orchestra, and one person asks what it is while a child asks what the huge violin is. Meanwhile, Rosalind, who is in the orchestra and also part of the singing group, feels nervous and wonders if she will do well. Then she hears her name, Rosalind, and turns and sees Lady Ariana. She calls her Lady Ariana, and Ariana smiles and tells her to just perform as they practiced. In addition to this, Ariana thinks that 1 month of practice was not much, but everyone worked very hard every day. She believes the time they spent practicing will not betray them. Then Luis turns his face slightly and looks at her, and he starts controlling the orchestra. The music begins and everyone starts playing. As the crowd hears the music, someone says, "Wow, such a beautiful melody." Then Rosalind begins singing, and a man in the crowd says he has never seen a singer like her before. Another person says her voice is very beautiful. Ariana hears this and thinks she is doing well. She also remembers when Rosalind said she wanted to be better than Lady Elena. Rosalind once said she wondered why Ariana wanted to discover her, and she thought Ariana wanted to take back songs lost to her family, so she would help Elena, who gave her the chance. As Rosalind sings, more people in the crowd praise her voice and sound, but some say the lyrics are strange. The song talks about being close to a friend and forbidden feelings, and people get shocked, saying she is talking about seducing a friend's husband. Then she continues singing about hiding love and white lies, and the crowd becomes angrier, saying all cheaters say the same things. She also sings about love in the garden, hallway, and a friend's dressing room, and a lady in the crowd says it is shameless. Rosalind thinks love is not a crime, and if it is, she is guilty for life. I did not expect the performance to turn so wild. While this is happening, Lucas and Edward arrive and are both very angry. Lucas thinks people are gathering in the square and watching this bad performance, and the song is about him and Elena. Then the song ends, and Elena speaks to the crowd, thanking them for enjoying the performance and introducing the producer. After this, our girl walks onto the stage, and Rosaline says it is Lady Ariana Lopez. Lucas becomes even angrier as he sees this and thinks he will not let Ariana get away with it. Ariana stands on the stage and thanks the crowd. The crowd goes wild. A man in the crowd says he saw it in the newspaper and that it is Eveline. Another lady says Ariana Lopez, the runaway bride, and she is shocked that such a young girl made that song. Then Edward jumps out from the crowd and shouts Ariana Lopez, saying she stole his stage. Ariana replies that she is Marquise and says it has been a while, and she also says it is more correct to say she took it back, not stole it. Edward becomes angry and tries to raise his hand at her. Ariana says it was her music, so she is taking it back. The crowd begins to murmur, confused by what she is saying, and Edward stops his hand in the air. Then Lucas comes from behind and pushes through Edward and others toward Ariana, grabbing her shoulder and shouting that he searched for her, and she humiliated him. He asks how she could not contact him. Ariana replies by asking if a marquis has the right to interrogate her like that. Lucas answers that she is the one who humiliated him and cheated first, asking when she started sneaking around with the Duke behind his back. Ariana replies that it is funny and says only a pig sees another pig. Lucas asks if she is denying it after what he saw. He moves close to her ear and says she is finished and talks about disgrace and chastity, saying she is trying to humiliate him and he will not be affected. He then tells the crowd that Ariana is the one who cheated with the Duke and that Elena only comforted him. The crowd murmurs. He continues saying Ariana is paranoid and mentally unstable, claiming she loses control when he speaks to other women. He thinks in his mind that he arranged a fake diagnosis through Ariana's doctor by bribing them, calling it paranoia and delusions. He says he only suggested treatment because he cared. Ariana smiles and says paranoid and delusions, asking if that is his counterattack. Lucas is shocked and wonders why she is laughing. Ariana then speaks loudly to the crowd and says he bribed a doctor with a gambling addiction to create a fake diagnosis, and that his financial situation is bad, so he did something desperate. The crowd becomes more shocked and murmurs that he may have bribed a doctor and tried to frame her as paranoid. The truth is finally out. As a result, the crowd continues reacting in confusion, asking if he really tried to frame her and questioning what really happened, while the tension on stage keeps rising. However, Lucas still shouts at Ariana, saying it is true that she had an inappropriate relationship with the Duke. He points at her and says she ran off with the Duke on her wedding day, and that cannot be denied. Ariana responds by saying maybe he did not hear about Elena. Then she takes out pictures from her pocket and says she will show him. Marquise? She reveals photos of Lucas and Elena being intimate. The crowd sees the photos and begins to murmur, asking what they are, and realizing they are real pictures. Ariana then explains that when an act breaks a marriage, the victim can demand a divorce, and any later acts cannot be blamed for the breakup. She slams the photos into Lucas's chest and says that the moment he slept with her sister, she was free to love any man she chooses. Lucas looks at the pictures, his hands shaking, and asks why this is happening and when it was taken. The crowd picks up the fallen photos and agrees she is telling the truth, saying it matches the song lyrics and that he really cheated with her sister. Lucas becomes very angry and calls Ariana a terrifying woman, saying he is fed up with her. He crushes the picture and says she acted innocent but was planning everything behind the scenes. He insults her, saying she is not worthy of love and calls her unappealing, and says the Duke will soon get tired of her. Just then, Duke Dante arrives, grabs Lucas by his clothes, and tells him to stop speaking informally to him, saying they are now close. Lucas trembles and calls him Duke. Dante tells him that men who cling to women who leave them are disgusting and tells him to stop touching his fiancée. Then he throws Lucas to the ground and tells him to leave. He then turns to Ariana and tells her to come with him. They walk together and enter a carriage. Inside, Dante tells her that the last time she came back with a slap, and now she is listening to insults, and he will make it clear that she will be his wife and should not lower herself because it would lower him too. Ariana apologizes and says that when Lucas speaks, it turns against him, so she thought it was useful, and she thanks Dante for helping her. Dante replies that she should be more shameless so he can feel less guilty, and Ariana says she has not done anything for him yet. Dante then says not to worry, because after marriage, they will be able to do everything freely. Ariana's eyes widen after hearing what Dante says. She thinks it would not be possible for him to do that and looks at his lower body. Dante notices her and calls her name, saying her face is turning red while smiling. He then says that since she is an artist, she should let her imagination run wild. Ariana quickly responds that it is not like that. The next day, Ariana sees a newspaper and wonders what will be published. When she reads it, she sees shocking news. The paper reports that the Marquis of Pettigrew is caught in an inappropriate relationship with soprano Elena Lopez, and even more shocking, the other person is confirmed to be the fiancé's younger sister. Ariana thinks about how the information appears right after the revelation in the square and believes the three most active gossip papers in the capital are involved. The photos show Lucas and Elena clearly. She feels the article is cleaner and stronger than expected, with a bold headline and solid evidence. Then she notices the newspaper called Empire's Morning, which is the most respected newspaper in the Empire and does not usually publish gossip. She is shocked that they published it without a proper investigation. In another scene, Leo speaks to Dante and says the capital is in chaos because of the news. He questions why Dante has been acting so recklessly, running off with another man's bride, and now pushing for articles when he never did such things before. Dante does not answer. Leo continues that he has published a special feature as requested, and it is already spreading widely. Dante says it is enough as a wedding gift. Leo is shocked and asks if Dante plans to marry her. Dante replies that, of course he will, and that is the reason he took the bride from the wedding. Leo wonders in his mind if this is really Dante Heigenberg. Dante then reads another newspaper report saying that the story of the mistress was revealed to be based on the composer's own life experiences, shocking the public, and that the full lyrics are included. Everything is spreading faster than anyone expected. People gather around and read the newspaper, talking about the shocking pictures. One person says the images are frightening and asks who would have thought the Marquis of Pettigrew would be like this. Another says the famous soprano they praised is also involved. The gossip continues, and a lady asks if the lyrics of Asha of the Mistress are all true. Another lady answers that it talks about the garden, hallway, and even a friend's dressing room, calling it disgraceful. Elena enters the building and greets everyone, but the crowd goes silent and turns away. She thinks they are ignoring her on purpose. She sees Olivia, goes to her, and greets her kindly, but Olivia covers her face with her phone and walks away, thinking Elena is acting friendly for no reason. Elena thinks Olivia was begging to come to her salon just a week ago. Then other royals whisper and ask if she is the woman who seduced her sister's fiancé, and they call it shameless. Elena hears all of this and tells herself to stay calm, thinking it is only a passing trial, And scandals help a star's success. Someone calls Elena's name, but she first thinks they are still watching her. She turns and answers with a smile. Then a girl from a dress shop says the payment for a dress is overdue. Elena's eyes widen, and she says her brother will handle it soon. The girl says the manager wants payment by the end of the week. Elena insists she will take care of it, but the crowd continues murmuring. She quickly walks away, thinking why everyone is staring as if she were a spectacle. Then she bumps into Lucas, who is covered in a cape, and says it is him. Elena is shocked and calls him Lorelei. Lucas asks if she is crazy for walking outside when they should stay hidden. Elena says she was trying to find a way to fix their reputation. Lucas says everything is already in the papers and tells her they only have one way to survive. He says he knows a journalist, and she must confess that she seduced him, saying there is only one clear photo of them kissing. Elena worries about her reputation, but then suggests facing it directly and even proposes marrying him, saying she would be a better wife than her sister. Lucas then gives an evil smile and rejects her, saying she is a commoner and he would never marry her. Elena's eyes widen in shock. Lucas speaks to Elena and tells her that he seems to have forgotten they live in the same house. He reminds her that while Ariana and Lucas's mother is from a noble family, Elena's mother is a commoner. And nobles and commoners should not mix, yet they already have. He brings his face closer to Elena and tells her that everyone must live in their proper place according to their station. Elena's eyes widen and she thinks about proper place and station. Lucas then says that this is how both she and he can survive. At another scene, Sophie speaks to Ariana and tells her about the news that Elena was publicly chased down for her on-page dress bill and ran out of the shop like a fugitive. Ariana thinks it was bound to happen and that Elena is likely deep in debt after the opera refunds as she sips her tea. Sophie then says a man dragged Elena into an alley and they saw red hair. Ariana says it must be Lucas. Sophie continues with her hand on her chin, imagining what they talked about. Ariana thinks about the scandal with a lower status woman and how Lucas must have reacted, while Elena is still driven by her desires. Ariana then gives Sophie a letter and asks her to deliver it to Willem at Count Lopez's residence. Both Sophie and Sophie respond that they will do so. Sophie asks if Ariana has other business since she is still in her dress, and Ariana says she is going to see the Duke for a moment. Sophie reacts with excitement and says she can be trusted. Later, Duke Dante is in his office and tells the person at the door to come in. Ariana enters and greets him, saying, "Good evening, Your Grace." While she stands there, she remembers Sophie overdoing her hair and how she could not stop her enthusiasm. Ariana speaks to Dante and says she came because she has something to give him. Dante asks what it is, and she moves closer to the piano. Ariana then begins to recall that over the past months, she has watched the Duke closely, and he always looks tired from staying up late working and often closes his eyes even when traveling. She thinks this is the first song she ever composed and sits at the piano to play it. She also remembers that when she was very young, she made this song hoping her mother would have sweet dreams, and she wonders if it will help him. While she plays, she turns and sees Duke Dante beside her. He holds her hand and says that talent is always captivating. She quickly removes her hand and thinks the music is captivating, she supposes. Our girl then tells him she assumes the article in the Empire's morning paper was thanks to his influence, Your Grace. Dante asks why she thinks so, and she explains that conservative people would not have published it so quickly otherwise. She says it may not be much of a reward, but it is all she can offer, and that listening to relaxing music may help him sleep. She offers to bring the music sheet. Dante responds that he does not want the music sheet, but wants her to come in person and play whenever he desires, like on sleepless nights. He touches her chin as he speaks, but she removes his hand and tries to speak. Yet he interrupts and moves closer, asking if she is wearing perfume. Ariana is surprised and recalls Sophie saying she hates fashionable people spraying perfume on their hair. She turns red and says it does not matter. Dante asks if she knows the flower the scent comes from, and she says she is not sure. He says it is cyclamen. Ariana then thinks it is a flower from the Coda regions and likely grows in the duchy. Dante then smiles and says its flower language means, "Follow this scent and come to my bed." Ariana thinks that Sophie probably does not think about the meaning of flowers, because she is not a complicated girl. She also thinks the real problem is the man who feels the need to point it out. And maybe the real problem is herself for getting too affected. Ariana then speaks to Dante and apologizes, saying, knowledge of flowers is part of a lady's culture and she has not studied enough. Dante smiles, turns away, and says she is good at making excuses for not knowing. He adds that her revenge is going well and he is enjoying it, but she must not forget there is still a price for using him. Ariana responds that she will do her best as the Duchess. Dante then says that from tomorrow, people will come for wedding preparations, and he plans to make her the most precious bride in the capital. Ariana's eyes widen, and she remembers a past life moment where Dante told her not to be foolish and come closer, and that he might treat her like a precious jewel. She thinks that in both lives, he is the only one who said he would cherish her. Dante tells her to be ready. She answers yes and prepares to leave. As she stands, he comes behind her and asks if she has remembered what she forgot. Ariana thinks it is that again and says she has not yet, adding that they should get a record soon, Lord Dante. Later that night, Ariana lies in bed and begins to dream. In the dream, her younger self is running and thinking that she must run if she does not want to die. The younger self falls to the ground, holding her knees and crying, saying she is coming out, calling for her mom and grandpa. Then Ariana wakes up and sits up, thinking about the dream. She puts her hand on her head and remembers that it is from when she was 10 years old, when she lost her grandfather and mother. She thinks that whenever she tries to remember it, the headache becomes so strong that she stops. She wonders if she's right to try to know it, or if it is because of the Duke's concerns, or if she needs to recall something. Then she speaks and asks if she is missing something important, while looking out through the window. At the Lopez residence, two maids talk. One says she cannot believe it. The other says Ariana, who was almost invisible in the mansion, has become the Duchess. Another maid comes and says Lady Elena used to be more popular, and she is still locked in her room. Another maid says she saw Willem going upstairs earlier. Then Willem stands in front of Elena's door and says outside that she has been in her room since she returned from her outing. Elena answers from inside that if he is going to nag, he should get lost. He enters the room and sits, then asks if she has met the Marquise of Pettigrew. Elena does not confirm clearly. He then asks if she was told to take responsibility for everything. Elena cries and says she was told to confess she attacked him and that they would find her a marriage match abroad, and she calls him a bastard. Willem says that if she leaves the capital, she will be in danger. Elena asks what he means, and he says she could be eliminated as a loose end because she knows the truth. Elena asks if the Marquis would kill her, and he says it is not impossible. She remembers Lucas telling her she cannot be his wife and thinks it might be true. She tells Wilhelm to do something, saying she is from the Lopez family, and he cannot just watch. Wilhelm says he cannot stay idle and tells her there is one way to survive. Elena's eyes widened. Ariana later sits with Madame Eveline and looks at a catalog of wedding dresses. Madame Eveline thinks Ariana is now the Duke's lover and very famous, and that making her dress will make her name famous, especially since the Duke is known to be very generous. Ariana says all the designs are beautiful, and she likes some styles, but she is not sure about the price limit. Madame Eveline says the price limit is fine, but Ariana says she was not informed yet, and that the limit is 50 million. Madame Eveline thinks there is almost no limit at all and says all dresses are below 50 million. Ariana then says there is a problem and says it must be over 50 million because he has ordered that nothing below that price should be bought. Eveline is shocked and thinks that the price limit is not the upper limit, but the lower limit. She also says that the total jewelry in her store is not even worth 100 million cardina. She is shocked again in her mind. Ariana looks at her and thinks Eveline is reacting the same way as the jeweler she met yesterday, when she tried to make her the most precious bride in the empire, and she wonders who knew it would be done in such a simple and rough way. Ariana then smiles and says that if it is too much, she will look for another shop. Eveline immediately shouts that they have silk imported from the East and she will sew it, sewing it all along the bottom of the dress. She also says she will sew small diamonds tightly into the lace to raise the price at once. Ariana says she did not know there was such a way. Eveline says to leave it to her, and she thinks she cannot miss the most talked about big chance in the empire for this reason. Our girl agrees and says she will leave it to Eveline. Eveline then asks if the Duke really loves Ariana. Ariana asks if it seems that way, and Eveline says of course it warms her heart just watching it, and tells her to be careful because her love is very gentle. Ariana thanks her. Eveline then says Ariana has a painful past and thinks she is curious about their hidden story. Ariana says that it is right, and that Eveline has comforted her a lot. Eveline takes notes in her mind. Eveline then asks if it is about that incident. Ariana says it is about her past experience, and that at first the Duke frustrated her because she still planned to marry him even after learning about her fiancé's affair. Eveline thinks the Duke was furious about Ariana's engagement situation and notes it. Our girl continues that the Duke saved her at the wedding in a very extreme way, but it woke her up, and now she is grateful. Eveline thinks that is what happened, and that the man who comforted her after betrayal and love ended up falling in love with her. In addition to that, Eveline is thinking that if the man she loves saved her at the cost of his own honor. Ariana then interrupts her thoughts and says that the Duke did not reveal Lucas's affair for her sake. He said he did not want the world to know about her wound. Eveline reacts and says, "Oh my, if Lady Ariana had not revealed the truth." Ariana then answers that yes, the Duke would have carried everything himself and taken all blame for breaking the engagement alone. Eveline immediately clenches her fist, stands up, and says she will make the most beautiful and noble dress in the world, and since Lady Ariana trusts her, she will repay her with affection. Ariana thanks her and says she trusts her. Eveline then thinks inspiration is coming, and also wonders if the rumor will spread well. Ariana looks at her and thinks she has seen similar things with all the merchants during wedding preparations, so it should spread somehow. and that there are still many gaps in her relationship with Dante. So during the contract period, this marriage must become a perfect romance. The wedding day arrives at the Heigenberg mansion, and two men talk about how the whole estate is opened for the wedding and how grand it is. The orchestra is also seen as very famous, making the event feel even bigger. Ruben Eveline watches and becomes emotional, thinking it is the best day of her life. Ariana walks in with Dante as the bride and groom, and people in the hall say she looks like a goddess. Ariana feels nervous, even though it is not her first time. The priest asks Dante if he vows to love and cherish the bride forever, and he says yes, gladly. The priest then asks Ariana, and she says she vows. Dante then tells her not to forget, and comes close and says she walked into this on her own, then kisses her. Finally, I've been waiting for this like forever. The crowd starts applauding, and later at the reception, music is playing while people walk around. Dante speaks to Ariana and says the music is nice and wonders who composed it. Ariana responds the same and tells him not to joke around. He says he is serious and adds that everyone was surprised she composed it, and they were likely looking forward to her performance at the Foundation Festival. Ariana reacts in surprise and asks really. Dante then says of course, but he is expecting something different tonight. Ariana asks what he means. Dante moves closer, covers her eyes, and says they are already married, and asks if she is really thinking of sleeping in separate rooms. Ariana is shocked. Elena then interrupts and comes forward, saying, "Sister, you look so beautiful today," and congratulates her, saying she must be happy. Ariana thinks she is reserved at heart at the wedding reception as people around start murmuring and asking why Elena is there. Another lady says it is shameless for her to come. Ruben Eveline arrives and asks Elena Lopez what she is doing there and calls her shameless. Elena bows her head and apologizes, and Eveline asks why she is trembling. Elena stammers, and Ariana tells her to raise her head. Elena raises it while trembling and says she only came to congratulate her sister. Ariana thinks her acting has improved and that she made herself look weak and like she has been crying. Elena comes closer again and praises Ariana's beauty and the couple, while others insult her and say no one wants her blessing. Elena then says she wonders if she should not have come now that Ariana is the Duchess, and she may never see her again. Ariana thinks she understands at least that. Elena then clutches her clothes and says, there is something Ariana does not know, and she never had the courage to say it until now. What evil is Elena cooking up again? Ariana asks Elena what it is and tells her to say it, while thinking it will probably be another weak excuse. Suddenly, Adolf Schmidt, the only son of Baron Schmidt, storms in and shouts that Miss Elena is the victim, and that everything is a misunderstanding. Ariana's eyes widen, and she thinks about why Adolf is siding with Elena. Adolf insists that there is a truth Lady Ariana does not know, and repeats that Elena is the victim. Duke Dante then pulls Ariana closer and tells Adolf that today is the day his bride should be the happiest person in the world, and asks if this story is so important that it must ruin that day. Adolf begins to tremble and thinks the pressure is making him lose his words. Elena tells him it is okay and looks down, saying Ariana still does not want to see her face. Adolf looks at Elena and thinks he must act anyway. Then he clenches himself and says it is indeed that important. Elena walks forward, and Ariana also steps closer while thinking that this excuse is not believable. Adolf then suddenly claims that Elena has been in a relationship with him all along and that they were secretly engaged. People in the crowd react and question if this is really true. Ariana thinks Adolf is being tricked and is unknowingly helping create false proof. Ariana moves closer to him while Elena stands nearby. Ariana tells Elena she has sincere advice for her and that she will say it only once, so she must listen carefully, and that it is not a good choice. Fear spreads over Elena as she hears this. Elena thinks that what Ariana says is not a good choice. The Schmidt family, where Adolf belongs, is very rich in the capital. She also thinks that with a little sweet talk and giving him space, he would act like he would give up everything for her in a foolish way. Elena believes Ariana is doing this out of envy, but then Elena speaks and says she does not understand what Ariana is talking about, sister. Ariana then replies, and she looks at Schmidt while thinking that Adolf may look like an easy option because he is easy to control. She also thinks that he will soon have serious crimes exposed, like illegal help, illegal trade, stalking, and kidnapping attempts, and he will be jailed. She also thinks his maritime trading company will be revealed as a scam and go bankrupt, and that he is a cheater and future criminal. Elena still has tears and says Ariana always cared, and once said the Marquis was kind to her. Elena then thinks that from today, people will stop blaming her and start blaming Ariana. She also says the Marquis told her not to wear makeup and to wear old clothes. The crowd begins to murmur and judge the situation. Elena then shouts that she never tried to seduce the Marquis. Elena thinks that people should feel pity for her, but she feels they are mocking her instead. Our girl calmly says she understands and asks if what Elena said is really true, even about the dressing room. Elena looks down and says she does not remember the dressing room, but the Marquise forced everything else. Ariana then thinks the Marquis is more evil than expected and says he should be punished immediately. Elena then wonders if Ariana really believes her, and she calls Ariana's sister while mentioning the Marquis has immunity. Our girl responds that with small charges, he cannot be investigated or arrested, but immunity is not perfect, and if enough people agree, he can still be punished. Elena says, "What?" Ariana then smiles and tells her she should accuse Lucas, and maybe the people there will agree with the claim. Ariana then turns to the crowd and asks if they will all help. The crowd begins to murmur, saying to report a fellow noble. A man in the crowd says that instead of standing with the Marquis of Pettigrew, it may be better to stand with the new Duchess. And Reuben Eveline then speaks up and says she will help with the claim. Many others also say they will join, and another says he will take part too. Ariana then smiles and says that if there is a claim, Lucas's immunity will not matter. Elena becomes bitter and thinks she did not want all this talk about reports and claims, only to change public opinion. She then asks Ariana if she is really okay with going against the Marquis, and Ariana tells her not to worry because many people are ready to help, and the truth will win. Later that night, Elena is in a carriage with Adolf. Adolf says it is great, and that soon the cruel Marquis will pay. Elena thinks Lucas will not be punished because there is no strong proof, and the case will fail. Adolf sees her thinking and believes she is lost in thought, so he moves closer and tells her that even if the Marquess goes to the police first, it will still damage his reputation, so she should not worry. Elena thinks Adolf is right and that Lucas's reputation will not recover. She then leans on Adolf's shoulder and says she feels safe with him, and Adolf says he will always stay by her side. Elena then thinks Ariana helping her is strange and wonders if she changed after becoming a duchess. She also wonders how Elena was able to attract the Duke when she could not, and thinks there must be some deal. She remembers Edward taking an old sheet of music and calls Ariana an insolent girl for taking her grandfather's sheet music. Edward had said it could sell for a high price, and its value would rise, and that someone might even give up a royalty for it. Elena then thinks the deal could only be for the Lopez sheet music and wonders if that sheet music was the price for the Duchess position. She then thinks that if she gets it back, she can take Ariana's place. And she smiles. Ariana is inside the bathtub and a butterfly comes out. She looks at it and thinks that every time she sees a butterfly, that music comes to her mind. She remembers the Phantom Butterfly trilogy, a series from her grandfather that became very popular. She also remembers that the final third part was lost after her grandfather died in a car accident. However, 3 years later, June reveals the lost third part at the founding ceremony and becomes very famous and rich. She also thinks he used musical scores from his maternal grandfather's estate to build his value. Ariana remembers she took some music sheets while living in the mansion, but many are still missing, so she must get them back. She thinks she must recover not only Phantom Butterfly, but everything, and she clenches her fist. Ariana leaves the bathroom and goes to the bedroom. She looks around and wonders if the Duke has not arrived yet. She also notices something like soup in rosalin oil, and then sees the bed decorated with rosalins shaped like a heart. She scatters the rosalins and thinks that after the wedding, the first night comes, so she expected this night. She also thinks the Duke made this plan before, even if it was half-hearted. She believes that in 5 years, no one will matter because the Duke cannot keep a woman, and the scandal is already known, though she also thinks he can still kiss, and she's good at it. Suddenly, Dante's voice interrupts her, asking what she is thinking so deeply. She is shocked and asks when he arrived. He says he saw her lower her head like she felt guilty when he entered. She says she is sorry toward him, and he asks what she is sorry for. She explains that Elena disrupted the reception. He looks skeptical. Ariana then thinks he would not apologize like this, and she appreciates it, and she did not expect Elena to use the wedding as a stage and bring Adolf into it. Dante responds that it is all right. He lifts Ariana's chin with his hand and tells her that the most important part of a wedding is the first night. He smiles while saying this. He then tells her that she was very confident at the reception, but now she looks like prey about to be caught. He says this makes him curious and wonders what else he will see if he flusters her more. Then he brings his face closer and kisses her. While he kisses her, Ariana thinks that this is just part of her revenge. Adolf then carries her and leads her to the bed, and as they become close, she wonders why her heart is beating so fast. It's about to go down. Dante pauses, sits, and calls her name, Ariana Lopez. She thinks his name has been heard many times, so it should feel familiar, but now it feels strange. Dante then smiles and says she is now Ariana Heigenberg, and he kisses her again. While they kiss, she thinks about whether he can hear her heartbeat, and she feels that this marriage for revenge is becoming very hard to handle. Then Dante stands up and says he cannot continue, and is leaving because he cannot stay with someone whose mind is elsewhere. He also says that revenge is enjoyable and sweet, and he knows it is hard to resist. Ariana hears this and thinks about Dante Heigenberg, who rose in from being an illegitimate child, fought wars, defeated those who opposed him, and became a duke. She wonders how he felt at the top, if it was joy or emptiness. She then puts her hand on his face, and he calls her name. She moves closer and tells him she wants to know more about him. Ariana suddenly freezes and realizes she cannot believe the words she just said. Then Dante Heigenberg tells her that if he did not know better, he would think she was trying to seduce him. After that, our girl starts stammering and says that is not what she meant. She explains that she still feels there is a lot she does not know about him. Before she can finish, he interrupts her and says he already knows while smiling. He then touches her face, calls her name, and tells her that from now on her reality is staying by his side. Only then can they figure out who owes what. The next morning, she sits outside thinking about how she could not sleep at all. She remembers him saying that if he stayed, he probably would not be able to control himself. Because of that, she starts wondering what he truly meant. She even questions if the Duke is really unable to take things further and thinks maybe he was only trying to hide the truth. Nevertheless, she quickly pushes those thoughts away and reminds herself that her revenge is still not over. She thinks about how she still has a long road ahead and now owes him another debt. She remembers his words again about figuring out who owes what. Then she realizes that making the people who betrayed her suffer was her only goal before now. She never once thought about what would happen after getting revenge. On top of that, she now wonders what will happen to their relationship when everything finally ends. At another scene, Lucas becomes furious and smashes a cup onto the ground. He angrily says he cannot believe she actually married another man. He admits that he thought she was only being sulky and never believed she would truly leave him. Just when we thought we had seen it all, a guard suddenly reports that Marky Lucas has been accused of sexual assault. That news really changed the whole mood instantly. They announce that they are there to take Lucas in for questioning. He quickly argues that the whole thing is nonsense and says he is innocent and protected by immunity. However, they explain that his immunity has been temporarily suspended because more than 10 people supported the accusation against him. After hearing that, he becomes nervous and asks who would support such a ridiculous claim. They refuse to reveal any names for now, but they do reveal that around 35 people supported it. He is completely shocked and repeats, 35 people? Right after that, they grab his hands and tell him he must come with them. As they drag him away, he keeps shouting at them to let go. Just when we thought things could not get worse, his mother suddenly faints. One of the maids panics and says the matriarch of Pettigrew fainted again and that the doctor already warned she might not survive another episode. Inside the prison, our girl visits him, and he immediately says he is glad she came because they need to talk. She calmly tells him that investigators are searching his mansion right now. Hearing that, he asks on what grounds. She then reveals that she personally told them she saw him sexually harassing Elena in the mansion and that they would find evidence in the roof garden. He angrily starts saying there is no evidence against him, but suddenly stops after realizing what she just revealed. She then looks at him and asks about his secret ledger. Lucas suddenly begins thinking about how Ariana could know about the secret ledger they used to avoid paying taxes. He also remembers that the ledger contains records of illegally buying slaves from other races. He thinks that only he, his mother, and his late father ever knew about it. Because of that, he asks her how she found out. Ariana only smiles without saying anything. Then she starts thinking about her past life and remembers how the Marchioness of Pettigrew once forced her to manage the secret ledger. She recalls the Marchioness mocking her and asking how she could ever support her husband if she could not even handle simple sums. She tries apologizing and explains that the commission fee had not been mentioned, but the Marchioness cuts her off and accuses her of blaming her instead. She then cruelly says maybe it is better that she cannot give Lucas an heir because they would not want a slow and dim-witted child carrying the Pettigrew family name. That was honestly painful to hear. As she remembers that moment, she realizes the Marchioness never trusted her at all. She only wanted someone to blame if the ledger was ever discovered. She even begins thinking that maybe she had already been dead long before the day she was hit by a car. Back in the present, she thinks about how awful everything truly was. At the same time, he keeps shouting that he is not a fool and accuses her of trying to ruin his family with wicked lies. She then calmly asks if he knows that the Marchioness has recently been borrowing money from loan sharks. He becomes angry again and says she is now insulting his mother too. She leans closer and explains that even the wealth of the House of Pettigrew starts running low when someone only wants the finest things and always chases the newest fashions. He refuses to believe it and says his mother is one of the wisest nobles he knows. She smiles again and agrees, saying the Marchioness wisely picked the business with the lowest interest rate. Then he suddenly realizes that the business is the financial supporter of the League of the Dawn. Lucas is completely shocked after hearing about the League of the Dawn. He thinks about how the group is made up of traitors who want to place the disgraced crown prince back on the throne. He also realizes that if people discover that one of the Empire's founding houses funded such a group, their family could be ruined. He cannot believe it, and keeps wondering how Ariana, who he once thought only knew how to write music, could know both about the secret ledger and his mother's dealings. Ariana only smiles and says it is nice to see him in such deep denial because it will make his future despair even sweeter for her. Hearing that, he clenches his teeth harder and asks if the reason she changed so much is because of Dante Heigenberg. He slams his hand against the prison door and angrily shouts his name. Then he yells that he was the first person to notice her talent. He reminds her how she used to quietly play the piano while fearing every glance from her brother. He claims that he recognized her ability and gave her love before Dante ever appeared. He is really crazy to think she would still believe him after everything. Our girl quickly cuts him off and tells him that what he gave her was never love. She compares it to a rotten fruit that looks sweet and beautiful on the outside but is disgusting inside. After saying that, she turns around and walks away. He stretches his hand through the prison bars and keeps shouting her name, but she never answers him. The next day at the Imperial Palace, Dante Heigenberg stands before the Lord while he angrily speaks about the crimes of buying slaves and avoiding taxes. He cannot believe one of the Empire's founding houses could fall so low. Then he tells him to stop acting clever because he knows something is happening between him and Ariana. In response, he calmly says, "The Lord must mean their compassionate love." The Lord then complains that talking to him is like talking to a wall. At the same time, he thinks about how 10 years ago, the House of Heigenberg sent him to war because they wanted to get rid of an unwanted illegitimate child. Instead of dying, he returned home as a famous war hero. Because of that, the Lord realizes he is far too capable to simply ignore. Inside the carriage, Dante Heigenberg tells Ariana that he feels she is hiding something from him. She stays silent while thinking that she was the one who sent the anonymous letter. She remembers knowing that exposing the Marchioness's illegal private loans would badly damage the Pettigrew family's reputation. He then folds his arms, smiles, and says it is interesting because she clearly did not expect it would lead to the capture of the League of the Dawn. She repeats the group's name in surprise, and he explains that thanks to her, they discovered a pawn shop called Frocken had secretly been funding them. She claims she never knew the two groups were connected, but in her mind, she admits that she already knew about the League of the Dawn. Still, she decides not to tell him that she learned about the connection with the Frocken pawn shop a few days before she died in her past life. She remembers hearing that the treasonous group had been working together with the pawn shop and decides it is safer to stay quiet. He then explains that such a serious matter will lead to a full investigation into Lucas. She responds by pretending to pity him and says it is unfortunate that such a noble house could fall so low. He stares at her and says her words would sound more believable if her eyes were not smiling. She admits she still needs more practice controlling her expressions. After that, he leans closer and says she can be quite adorable at times, causing her to quickly turn away. He suddenly tells her they must head to the palace because His Majesty wants to see her. She becomes shocked and asks why the Emperor would want her there. Later at the palace, she nervously wonders what His Majesty could want from her. She bows respectfully and greets him. The Emperor then says she must be Ariana and comments that she is very different from his daughter. He even says that this must be Dante Heigenberg's type of woman. Hearing that, she becomes confused and politely responds. Then he immediately steps in and asks His Majesty not to say unnecessary things to his wife. The Emperor responds by asking if he is not being a little too overprotective. Dante was defending her without hesitation again. His Majesty changes the topic and tells our girl that because her information helped capture people trying to harm the Empire, he wants to reward her. He tells her that he will grant any wish she desires. Hearing this, she becomes shocked and thinks about how the Emperor himself is offering her a reward. She then boldly asks for permission to perform at the Foundation Festival. The Emperor places his hand on his chin and thinks about her request. Then he remembers how Eduardo, the great virtuoso, once visited the palace while leading his granddaughter by the hand. After that, he says he likes her answer and believes there is no danger in letting her perform since Dante Heigenberg trusts her talent so much. He announces that the final performance of the festival will belong to her. She brightens up with happiness and thanks him, promising not to disappoint him. As she looks at him, she thinks about how he helped the Emperor see her not as a woman who could not compose music, but as the successor to a master composer's talent. She realizes things would never have gone this smoothly without his support. Just then, he notices her staring at him and leans close to whisper that she should save such a compassionate gaze for when they are alone. Seeing this, the Emperor smiles and comments about the sweet love of youth. Meanwhile, in another scene, Edward angrily shouts and throws papers everywhere across the table. He yells about how he is drowning in refund problems, even after firing all the servants he thought were wasting his money. He cannot understand where all the expenses are still coming from. Then he blames Ariana for everything and complains that she stole his orchestra. He angrily says that if not for her, he would already be sitting on a pile of money while composing a masterpiece for the Foundation Festival. Just when we thought his anger could not get worse, someone knocks on the door. The butler enters and announces that a guest is waiting for him. He becomes annoyed and says he already ordered everyone to be told he was unavailable. However, the butler explains that the visitor wishes to invest in him. Right after that, a mysterious man suddenly appears. That entrance already sounds suspicious to me. Edward looks shocked and asks if the man truly knows him. Leonard responds that he has been watching him since his days at the End Royale Academy and always believed his talent was meant to shine greatly. He then mentions hearing unfortunate news about him recently. After hearing that, he asks what kind of help he is offering. He calmly explains that he will pay off the debts owed to the Imperial Bank and also make sure he gets a stage at the upcoming founding festival. He adds that with such talent, he is sure to stand out there. Hearing this, his eyes widen with excitement. In his mind, he thinks about how the founding festival is every artist's dream stage and imagines how performing there could change his life. Then he warns that since he is covering such a large debt, the interest will be high, but this is his only chance to appear at the festival. He quickly agrees and thanks him. After that, he says the important guests at the festival will surely recognize his history. Deep inside, he starts blaming everyone who failed to appreciate his value, and especially blames Ariana for ruining everything just when he was about to succeed. He convinces himself that heaven is finally rewarding his true talent. Then he reaches out his hand and properly asks for the man's name. He smiles and introduces himself as Leonard. That deal already sounds way too dangerous to me. In another scene, Sophie suddenly rushes into the room while holding a newspaper and calling out to Ariana. However, she quickly notices our girl working on a manuscript. She greets her warmly and notices she stayed up all night composing again. Worried, she warns that this will ruin her health. She calmly says she is fine and asks why she came. After that, she is shown a newspaper article about Count Edward Lopez's wrongdoings. She then hears about how the servants at the Lopez estate were thrown out with nothing, and she responds that, with so many people involved, information is now spreading everywhere through the newspapers. Then she suddenly asks if she would consider leaving the Lopez estate for good. She becomes shocked and asks what she means. She then offers her a new job as her personal assistant from that day onward. Hearing this, her eyes widen with happiness, and she quickly says she would gladly accept. Finally, she gently holds her hand and admits she has always felt guilty for being the only one who managed to leave the estate until now. Sophie is comforting Ariana and telling her everything is fine before correcting herself from calling her lady to Emruferzen. After that, she asks if she would like to hear the new song she composed because she had many thoughts during the night. Hearing this, she immediately becomes excited. Then we see her begin playing the piano while the other quietly thinks about how beautiful the music sounds. After finishing, she asks which of the two songs is better. She struggles to choose and says the first song is breathtaking, but the second is wonderful too. She honestly says both are so good that she cannot decide. However, she suddenly thinks this means both songs are only average. Shocked, the other quickly denies it and insists she truly loves both songs. In her mind, she even worries that her poor vocabulary makes it hard to explain her feelings properly. Then we see her place a hand on her chin while saying that beauty alone is not enough for music. She explains that a true piece must move the listener's heart so deeply that they feel it has to be that one. She also believes her grandfather would have agreed and says there must still be a breakthrough waiting somewhere. She notices merchants arriving outside the window. She guesses the Duke probably sent more gifts like dresses or jewels and worries about how little time is left before the founding festival. Just then, the butler arrives and informs her that the master summoned instrument merchants for her and arranged everything in the music room. Hearing this, she instantly becomes excited and rushes downstairs. When she opens the door, we get to see all kinds of instruments filling the room, including pianos, violins, and cellos. She then thinks about how she once believed composing only needed a single piano because it was the only instrument she was freely allowed to use until her final days. She remembers Lucas once telling her how lucky she was to even use such a precious piano. For every other instrument, she had to imagine the sounds in her mind while composing. Then she notices a harp and remembers how much her grandfather loved its sound. She recalls how her father sold it after her grandfather died and becomes thankful she never completely forgot it. As she touches the strings, her body naturally remembers how to play. Just when we thought the moment could not become sweeter, Dante Heigenberg suddenly praises her playing and asks if she knows how to play the harp too. She is surprised that he bought such an expensive instrument without even knowing if she could use it. She explains that her grandfather taught her many instruments. He smiles and says she truly is a woman of many talents and a perfect wife for him. She can only stare at him after hearing that. Then he teasingly asks what else she can do and whether she can sing as well. Hearing those words, her eyes widen in surprise. That man keeps catching her off guard every single time. Ariana becomes nervous after Dante Heigenberg asks if she can sing. She immediately wonders why he suddenly brought up singing and starts remembering the emperor saying the day before that she once sang beautifully like a lark before suddenly becoming a noble lady. She then questions whether she can still sing at all because she has not done it once since that day. Even so, she quietly says she will try. In her mind, she even thinks that singing once is a very low price compared to all the expensive instruments he bought for her. Then she opens her mouth to sing, but suddenly her chest tightens. She feels like she cannot breathe and begins collapsing toward the floor. He quickly rushes over to support her while calling out her name and asking if she is okay, because she is trembling badly. She struggles to answer, but he gently tells her not to force herself into doing something she does not want to do, because nobody can make her. She then explains that she does not actually hate singing and believes she even used to love it before. He calmly tells her that he already knows. Hearing that surprises her, and when he asks what happened, she slowly begins talking about the terrible day when she was 15 years old during her debut ball. During that event, everyone expected great musical talent from her because she was Eduardo Lopez's granddaughter. People in the crowd excitedly talked about how much they looked forward to her performance. Then we see her standing on the stage while everything immediately starts going wrong. The very first note is impossibly high, and by the time she barely manages to continue singing, the music accompaniment completely loses rhythm. She remembers wondering why everything was happening and feeling unable to breathe properly. Soon after, she collapses onto the ground. At that moment, the crowd begins shouting in panic, while some call her disgusting after bumps appear on her skin. Others wonder if she caught some illness and even fear it might spread to them. She later explains that she has a mild shellfish allergy, and that the reaction suddenly appeared during the performance. Afterward, she is taken to the doctor, but instead of comforting her, Edward angrily yells at her the entire time. He demands to know what she ate and cruelly tells her how ugly she looked on stage. He shouts that all she had to do was perform normally, but failed anyway. Then he blames her for destroying the family's musical reputation and says the Lopez family name became a joke because of her. Her own brother cared more about reputation than her condition. Our girl finally realizes that before her debut stage performance, Elena gave her fruit juice that was probably mixed with something. Dante Heigenberg then calmly says that all he ever hears about her family are terrible rumors. Hearing this makes her feel strange because she realizes he is actually angry on her behalf. She smiles and starts saying that she has shown too much weakness over something that happened long ago. But before she can finish, tears suddenly fill her eyes. Right away, he pulls her into a hug and tells her to stop pretending to be strong in front of others, because it does not work on him. As tears fall from her eyes, he gently tells her not to cry and promises he will never force her to sing. Then he pulls her closer and kisses her. At that moment, she thinks there is no need for them to pretend to be a loving couple because nobody is watching, yet he continues kissing her deeply for a long time. That scene became way more emotional than I expected. Later that night, we see her lying on the bed while trying to calm herself down. She keeps warning herself not to be shaken by him because she still has important things to focus on. She also tells herself that what happened probably means nothing to him and thinks that must be why he was so skilled at kissing. Then she remembers him saying he wanted to enjoy things until she remembered, but that waiting felt like torture to him. Because of that, she starts wondering if a physically flawed man could really react that way. Eventually, she tries to sleep, but she begins having a strange dream. We're shocked to see her hear a voice calling out for the little lady to come closer while she runs away from a monster-like creature. Suddenly, she trips and falls into the ocean. The moment she sinks, she wakes up in fear. She then realizes that dreaming the same thing twice does not feel like a normal nightmare and wonders if it is connected to the memory he told her to remember. After stepping onto the balcony, she begins thinking deeply about music and inspiration. She realizes she may finally have found the kind of melody she was searching for. She wants a song that stays in people's hearts for a very long time and creates strong emotions the moment it is heard. She compares it to how scary stories and nightmares stay in people's minds longer than happy fairy tales or sweet dreams. Finally, she decides that the feeling of an eerie but mysterious forest at midnight is something she will never forget. At the banquet, people begin to murmur and discuss Count Lopez. They say he is hosting a banquet even though he could barely afford to send servants away. Then a lady says they hear he has paid off all his debt at once, and that is why everyone comes. Another man says they are actually there for a special commemorative gift. The lady then asks what the gift is, and it is shared with everyone. A man says he is looking at it, and it is a memo personally written by the late Count Eduardo Lopez. A lady says it is fascinating, like a keepsake, with 2 measures of melody written on it. Another man says his memo has title suggestions written on it and finds it interesting. Just then, Edward hits a spoon on a champagne glass to get attention. He says the commemorative gift is getting attention, and that this year marks the 10th anniversary of his grandfather's passing. He explains this is why he shares his grandfather's legacy. He says some may look down on it, but sharing it makes it meaningful. He then says that on National Foundation Day, he plans to present the 3rd part of the Illusion Butterfly. People murmur that it is the final masterpiece of the great composer. Edward says the unfinished part was composed by him, though it is imperfect, and he asks them to listen kindly as he bows. In addition, we are shown that he thinks they need this kind of event to honor the family name. In the next scene, Elena shouts Ariana's name and runs to hug her, greeting her warmly as they meet at the banquet. People around them murmur that they seem close, and there are rumors mentioned about Lucas's misconduct. Elena thinks she has been showing herself as a pitiful victim at social events, and she believes Ariana is starting to understand the situation after seeing her there. She then looks around and asks where the Duke is, and Ariana replies that she did not come with the Duke, with the idea that Luke must have gotten tired of the boring sister. Elena also asks why Lily did not come together, noting it is Ariana's first official event since becoming Duchess. Our girl hears this and thinks she should act that way. However, she then walks away and says, "What's the big deal about visiting parents' house? It's just a small official event." Elena responds that what Ariana is saying is true. Our girl then speaks to her and says that the tiara she is wearing is hers, and she is happy to see her wearing it. Elena gets very angry but tries to hide it. Ariana then leans close to her ear and says she has always liked inheriting her things, even the men. This makes Elena even angrier. Just then, Edward arrives, shouting Ariana's name. He thinks in his mind, "How dare you, thief?" He walks to her and asks what is going on, saying he did not send an invitation because he thought she was busy. Ariana replies that she came to retrieve her grandfather's keepsake and asks how he could scatter it like this. Edward shouts back that, as the head of the family, he decides what happens to family belongings, and she is an outsider. Ariana responds that he must also share the commemorative gifts with her as a guest. Edward then tells the butler to give one to the Duchess, and she receives a gift. Elena then comments that the memo has a drawing on it, and Ariana says the little girl drawn there is her. Ariana remembers she used to braid her hair like that. People begin to murmur that she and Eduardo had a deep connection. A lady points out the braided girl in the drawing, and Ariana confirms it is her. Another lady apologizes for taking such a precious keepsake, and others begin to question why Edward gave it out. Edward becomes frustrated and thinks Ariana is unbearable. I can feel the tension rising so fast there. In the next scene, we see Edward calling Ariana to come with him and shouting at her what this is. Ariana responds that she should be the one asking that, saying he scattered her grandfather's keepsake like promotional gifts and even hid the third part of the illusion butterfly. Edward thinks she is unusually emotional. He says that family belongings, they are his. Ariana then asks if her brother also has the sheet music. Edward reacts, thinking about the sheet music, and asks what she means. Ariana then says he should not pretend not to know, explaining that her grandfather's final work was not Illusion Butterfly Part 3, but another sheet of music he worked on until the day before he died, which is the real final work. On hearing this, Edward's eyes widen in shock. I did not expect that final twist at all. Edward begins thinking that there is something like a final work, and that the old man always favored Ariana. He becomes angry and decides to pretend he has it for now, while he searches for information in the house. He thinks he needs to look around carefully. Then he smiles and tells Ariana that he, of course, has it. Ariana responds that it is hers and asks him to return it, reminding him that the melody was her first creation, completed by her grandfather, and it is her music. She says if he will not give it back, she will find it herself, and she turns to leave. However, Edward rushes and blocks her path. Ariana tells him to step aside because she will search the office safe herself. Edward tells her it is not there and calls her an idiot. Ariana pushes him and says she will search every corner, even the hidden part of the safe. Edward thinks in shock about a hidden compartment in the safe, realizing she has seen through it again, and remembers the same look she always had when she stole his music. He thinks that the thieving gaze might lead to her downfall. In the next scene, we see Dante arriving at the event, asking where his wife is, saying she came here on an outing. People in the crowd begin to murmur about where the Duchess has gone, and someone says she moved to another room earlier with the Count. Katarina becomes angry in her thoughts, wondering if he is really there to find his wife. Adolf then greets Dante politely, but Dante tells him he is not in the mood because he has not seen his wife for half a day. Adolf apologizes, while people whisper that the Duchess is not loved, though that is not true. Jake then asks where his wife is, and Adolf says the Duchess was last seen going to speak privately with Count Lopez. The butler then steps in and offers to guide Dante to the Duchess. As if that was not enough, we see Edward telling Ariana he has not finished speaking, but the door suddenly opens, and Dante appears. Edward is shocked, and Dante grabs him by his clothes and asks if he made his wife cry. It's about to go down. Edward thinks that he believed Ariana was shut away at home because she was being mistreated, but he now wonders if that is not the case. Dante then speaks to him and warns that he should not lay a hand or even say a word against Ariana, saying his wife may have let a kick to the chin slide, but he is not so forgiving. Edward quickly stammers and says yes. In addition to that, Ariana and Dante begin walking out of the banquet. Ariana asks why Dante is there, and he responds that such a question should not be asked by his wife. He leans closer and pulls her to himself, saying he had no choice but to come find her. People around them begin murmuring, saying it looks like a tender moment. Ariana says she planned to return before it got too late, and Dante replies that she should, since she still has to perform tonight. I did not expect him to show up like that. Now, our girl is returning home with Dante, where a maid welcomes her and asks if she should prepare her bath, but Ariana says she will go straight to the musical room. The maid and even the butler both think that it is expected of her as they blush while watching Ariana and Dante together. Inside the musical room, Ariana is at the piano and asks Dante if he will see her father again today, and he says yes. She then says his presence makes it hard for her to focus, but he calls it a lie, saying she forgets him once she starts. Ariana thinks he is sly, then focuses on her musical manuscripts, thinking about the emotion she must express in a festival scene where joy must feel beautiful, strange, and unsettling at the same time. As if that was not enough, Dante comes behind her and asks if she is sure about that part. Ariana explains it is hard to express such emotion, saying extreme joy and sorrow are like two sides of the same coin, and she wants to show that. Another voice explains it as wanting to know what it feels like to be so happy you could cry. Dante then asks if she wants him to show her. He touches her chin and nose, saying he may understand more because he has lived longer. Ariana pulls him closer by his jacket and tells him to show her, and then Dante kisses her. Edward is standing and thinking deeply when Leonard suddenly comes from behind. Leonard tells him that he looks disheartened and says he has heard the news that the third part of Phantom Butterfly is being submitted to the Founding Festival. Edward responds that the unpublished third part will get a good reaction, so there is no need to worry. Leonard says he is disappointed, and Edward asks what he means. Leonard says he was hoping to see Edward's original work. Edward thinks that he also wanted that. But he struggled for 3 days at his desk and feels deadlines ruin creativity, calling them poison for his artistic soul. He then says it will still get a good response. But Leonard interrupts and says that if Edward is presenting Phantom Butterfly, he will withdraw his sponsorship. Edward is shocked and asks how that is possible. Leonard then says he is sponsoring Count Lopez, not a ghost already returned to dust, and tells him to repay the money within the deadline before walking away. Edward calls out and stops Leonard, then quickly changes his mind and says he will submit his personal work instead. Leonard smiles at this. As if that was not enough, later we see Edward inside a room thinking about Ariana's words and wondering if there is a hidden space behind the safe. He punches the safe in frustration and feels severe pain in his hand. The butler appears from behind and asks what he is doing. Edward questions him, saying he does not look surprised, meaning he must know about the secret vault. He then slaps the butler and demands why he hid it from him. The butler replies that it only contains Eduardo's personal keepsakes and nothing of real value. Edward orders him to open it or die, and the butler agrees. Edward tells him he should have done that from the start. The butler opens the safe and Edward pushes him aside and sees the musical manuscript. He says it is there, thinking it is the last masterpiece of a legendary composer, and maybe even more valuable than Phantom Butterfly. Edward speaks and laughs, saying that this is it again and again. The next day, in a new scene, we see Dante sitting in his armchair in his office. He thinks that this kind of thing is learned to gain inspiration, like trying to master the unknown, and he calls it a destructive test for knowledge. A voice comes from outside the door. Leonard appears and says he has returned from carrying out Lady Ariana's request. He explains that, as she predicted, when Edward was threatened with losing sponsorship for submitting a non-original work, he changed his mind and said he would submit an original piece for the funding festival, with a confident look. Leonard then praises Ariana, saying she is truly remarkable for predicting the opponent's moves and planning boldly, even saying she could have been a military specialist. Dante interrupts and tells him to stop the nonsense, and asks if that is all the report. Leonard then explains that after the Frockenpoint shop was exposed, they have been tracking members of the Dawn Brigade who fled. He says they captured one of them, and that person said something strange, admitting they were not part of the assassination that went to the Palace Forest, and asking that the Duchess not hold a grudge. Dante thinks about the Palace Forest, where Ariana's grandfather and mother reportedly died, and connects it to the Dawn Brigade's assassination mission. As if that was not enough, Dante orders Leonard not to inform Ariana and to stop handling the captured person. Leonard is shocked and asks why, saying they have not fully interrogated them yet, but Dante says he will question them personally. In the next scene, we see the Founding Festival Day, with people entering and talking about the long carriage procession and the pride of the Empire. They discuss foreign delegates, including the Enda Kingdom and their stylish appearance, and they say the first prince is handsome and interested in the arts. They then notice a strange carriage and learn it belongs to the Kingdom of Karka. People question why Karka has come, saying it is a reclusive kingdom, and others link it to the Duke and an old war alliance. Rumors spread about them keeping snakes as pets and being very violent, with Tormund mentioned as their general. I feel like every new arrival only brings more secrets and tension. Tormund sees Ariana and Dante and he widens his eyes. Tormund then bows to Dante and says it has been a long time since they last met. Dante responds that indeed it has been a long time and says Tormund has traveled far and must be tired. Tormund then looks at Ariana and asks who she is. At that moment, Dante pulls Ariana closer and introduces her as his wife, Ariana Heikenberg. Ariana greets Tormund politely and says it is a pleasure to meet him. Our girl gets shocked when Tormund suddenly kneels and says he hopes she enjoys her time in the Empire and asks for the honor of offering the Oath of the Desert to her. Dante immediately tells Tormund to stop the nonsense and get up before he kicks him, calling him a general. Tormund smiles and apologizes, explaining that in Karka it is customary to pledge an oath to the most beautiful thing they see, and as Ariana is the Duke's wife and a benefactor of their people, he would offer that pledge. Dante calls it an outrageous display, while Ariana thinks that if this continues, people may start saying the Duke is arrogant. Ariana then speaks politely, saying she has heard Karka is a beautiful country, strong and militant, but also loyal and against improper behavior like taking what belongs to others. Tormund agrees and says they repay courtesy with loyalty, inviting her to visit Karka. As if that was not enough, Dante interrupts and says that it will not happen, saying his people can protect his wife. He tells Ariana to leave with him. As they walk away, Ariana asks if they should really leave Tormund like that, since he is acting interested because she is the Duke's wife. Dante replies that it does not matter and says Tormund is only acting that way because he finds her beautiful, adding that the people of Karka are drawn to appearances. Ariana suddenly asks Dante if he thinks she is beautiful. Dante is shocked, and Ariana thinks she may have said it out loud. Then Dante pulls her closer and hugs her, telling her not to make that face just anywhere. Dante continues speaking to Ariana, saying it is the kind of face that drives people crazy, and that he is already holding himself back as it is. Ariana hears this and remembers the previous night, and she thinks she should not have asked that question. Just then, Leo arrives and whispers to Dante that he needs to go to the interrogation room. Ariana tells Dante to take his time and speak with the others. Dante replies that even if someone says nonsense to her again, she should humiliate them completely, saying she can trust him for that much. Furthermore, we see Leo and Dante walking away while Ariana watches them. Then Elena appears and tells Ariana that she has been found. Ariana greets her and says she looks well, adding that the trading company profits seem good. Elena responds that once the merchant ships return, she and her brother will earn even more, and she tells Ariana she should have listened to Lord Adolf. Our girl replies that perhaps that is true. Elena then says she heard the Emperor has given Ariana the honor of performing the final act at the founding festival and asks if it is true. Ariana confirms it is true. Elena comes closer and tells her to do her best, but says that whatever she does will be overshadowed by their performance, adding insults about traitors and country bumpkins. Our girl then asks Elena why she is so full of herself. Elena reacts in shock. Ariana says she has already reviewed all the evidence about Elena and Lucas, and Elena thinks Ariana has been quiet because she had no proof. Ariana then says Elena even took medicine to try to have Lucas's child. Elena shouts in anger, asking why Ariana is saying this now, and realizes people are watching them. Ariana laughs and says she will find out soon enough. Elena asks what she means, and Ariana pats her shoulder and says she will see her soon, and will be watching her performance from the best seat. Then, Ariana walks away. Dante enters a room where the Emperor is present. The Emperor greets him and asks if he has arrived, calling him Duke. Dante then stands before a man who is tied up and asks if this is the action leader of the Dawn Group. The Emperor confirms that he is and says he has been so for over 10 years, also explaining that he is likely the core of the assassination operation, meaning he may have carried out the job. Dante then says that if that is true, the man is his wife's sworn enemy, which shocks the tied-up man. Dante tells the Emperor that he should step aside because it is not a sight suited for someone of his status. The Emperor agrees, says he has become faint-hearted with age, wishes the Duke good luck, and says he will wait for the report before leaving. The Emperor's son stays behind and says he will remain as a witness, saying either he or his father should see the punishment since it is about traitors. Dante allows him to stay. The Emperor's son thinks Dante is too arrogant and disrespectful, despite his favor from the Emperor. Dante removes the cloth from the man's mouth, and the man begins shouting that he should just be killed and he has nothing to say. Dante says another Dawn member already admitted there was an assassination contract, and he remembers that person saying there was a request about 10 years ago to kill Count Lopez and his daughter, but they claimed they were not involved. Dante then picks up his dagger and demands to know the employer and who ordered the murder of Eduardo Lopez. The man refuses and tells him to kill him. Dante calls him a butcher and says there is nothing more to say. Then Dante stabs the man in the thigh, making him scream. That interrogation scene felt really cold and intense. Dante continues speaking to the tied man, saying he is right and that he has been skilled at butchering people. He says he knows exactly where to strike to make him spill all secrets before dying in pain, and again demands to know the employer. The man begins to tremble and thinks in his mind that Dante's eyes look even more terrifying than anything around him. Dante then grabs the knife in the man's neck and twists it, increasing the pain while the man keeps screaming. The man finally gives in and shouts that he will talk. He stammers and begins to speak, saying the culprit is about to be named, but before he can finish, someone throws a dagger into his neck and he dies instantly. Dante then says he is dead. The Crown Prince begins shouting weakly, ordering to chase the intruder and asking what is happening with the palace guards. However, Dante stays still, holding his chin, and thinks back to when the man almost said the name. He wonders if it is Ferzan Lopez, who is Ariana's biological father and once a son-in-law of the Lopez family. And he recalls the situation about the affair and possible divorce, thinking Ferzan may have ordered the assassination to prevent it, but also suspects someone inside the palace is covering it up. Dante walks out while Leo asks what they should do, and if they should pursue the intruder. Dante ignores that and says he is returning to Ariana. He then asks where Ariana is, and Leo replies that the Duchess is attending the arts festival. When they arrive, Dante sees a large crowd and thinks there are too many people and that assassins could be among them. Leo points out a crowd ahead, and Dante looks closely and sees Ariana speaking with a man, thinking of Ariana's name. Our girl is saying to the man that perhaps it is not Her Highness the Princess damaging the Empire's reputation, but the two of them instead. This story keeps getting more tense every time. Our girl is walking inside an art gallery and looking at paintings. She thinks in her mind about where the princess's painting is, the one she is exhibiting this year. She thinks it will sell for a very high price in 3 years and wonders if the princess even plans to sell it to her. Then, Ariana remembers the princess once saying that Ariana had made a perfect plan to win her favor. Ariana then thinks the princess may still hold resentment from that moment. She then speaks and says that if she remembers correctly, it is a lyrical landscape painting. Our girl overhears some counts talking about the princess's painting. A man with brown hair questions how Her Highness could paint such an indecent and obscene work, pointing at the drawing. The princess reacts in confusion and thinks these people are old-fashioned. She then speaks and asks if they just called it indecent and obscene. A man with glasses and another man with purple hair agree, saying it is improper for someone so noble to create such a harmful piece. Ariana watches and thinks it is only a man and a woman sharing a kiss in winter clothes without anything suggestive. The man with brown hair then says the princess is the flower of the empire and questions who influenced her into making such a work. As if that was not enough, the princess thinks in her mind that she now understands their real intention. She believes her mentor, a famous radical artist, has rising influence, and his students are gaining fame outside the empire. She thinks conservative artists are unhappy and are now targeting her as their most visible disciple during the founding festival, with foreign guests present. The man with brown hair then suggests she withdraw the painting, and the man with purple hair says she should make something more modest instead. Ariana then steps forward and questions them, reminding them that they once bought art that was not modest, including a nude angel statue. The two men are shocked. The man with brown hair denies it and says the statue was about the sacred beauty of the human body. The princess thinks that idea sounds exaggerated, especially since the angel's chest was strongly shown. Our girl continues speaking and asks if that statue also includes a large snake wrapped around the angel's body. The man replies that it represents the angel resisting evil. Ariana then turns to the man with purple hair and asks if he also bought a painting of a nude banquet outdoors. He turns away and says it was a masterpiece about human friendship beyond social rules. The princess thinks it is unfair that such works are accepted, but her simple kiss painting is treated as a scandal. Ariana then tells the princess that all art has meaning, but they are criticizing it without trying to understand it. The men insist they are only expressing concern for her reputation, even mentioning possible problems with future marriage arrangements. These counts are judging one thing very harshly while ignoring their own actions. The princess clenches her fist and thinks about marriage and those people. Ariana then speaks to the two men and says that the ones tarnishing the empire's reputation are not Her Highness, but the two of them. The man with purple hair reacts and asks what she just said. The man with brown hair then tells Ariana that she should explain what artistic value they missed in the princess's painting. He thinks in his mind that Ariana only writes notes on music and knows nothing about art. Our girl calmly places her finger on her chin and says she cannot fully understand the princess's intent since her knowledge of painting is limited. The man thinks she will say something simple, but Ariana explains that from the moonlight to the lighting, the direction is unified to guide the viewer's eyes in one direction, while the opposite side is covered in darkness and ignores perspective. She adds that it feels like the painting suggests that for the two people looking at it, nothing matters beyond the moment they are together. Ariana then turns and asks the envoy from the Enda Kingdom for their opinion. The envoy agrees and says the technique used in the night sky clearly shows the meaning she described. The man with brown hair is shocked and thinks the painting may actually have depth. People around begin praising Ariana's explanation, calling it a profound work, and thanking her for helping them understand it. Our girl then asks the two counts if they have a different opinion. They both become speechless, and one of them excuses himself by saying he forgot his glasses, while the other says he wore the wrong prescription, and they quickly leave. The princess then thanks Ariana, saying she did not expect her to understand her intent so well, and Ariana thinks the princess looks surprisingly cute when saying thank you. Ariana bows and says she only found it sad that others could not see the beauty of the work. All these while, Dante is watching Ariana and the princess before walking up to Ariana and saying he has been looking for her. Ariana responds and calls him Duke. Dante takes her hand and says she attracts attention everywhere, making him jealous. Ariana asks if he is upset, but he smiles and says it just makes him realize he is a prettier man than he thought. Then they walk away together. The princess watches them and thinks she wonders if she will ever understand the truth, and that her painting was inspired by Ariana's composition on possession. As if that was not enough, we see the crown prince and a guard watching from outside, with the guard asking if they should leave. The crown prince identifies Ariana as Ariana Heigenberg, formerly Ariana Lopez, and calls out her name again. Edward is seen standing by a wall on the day of the founding festival. He thinks in frustration that low-ranking nobles should not be allowed into the festival because they do not understand how it works. Then Marquis Roman calls out to him, and Edward bows and greets him politely. Edward then thinks that the Marquis used to sponsor his family in the past, but since the old man died, he has not attended or sponsored them, so he wonders why he is acting friendly now. Marquis Roman speaks and says he heard Edward will perform an original composition instead of Phantom Butterfly Part 3, and that the orchestra members who saw it were impressed. He says he has high hopes and promises to restore sponsorship if the performance succeeds. Edward is surprised and asks if he is serious. He smiles and thinks things are finally improving, then says that after today's performance, he will be convinced. Furthermore, we see Ariana on a balcony, thinking she is able to watch the founding festival from a box seat thanks to the Duke. She notes that such seats are normally for royals or foreign groups, and that she can see the entire stage clearly. Dante then appears and says she seems satisfied with the view. He is holding a glass of champagne and gives her a glass. Ariana thinks he has never offered her alcohol before. Dante says he feels something worth toasting is about to happen. Our girl thinks he sometimes acts like he knows everything about her, while she knows little about him, especially his true goals and why he left the room last night. But she is sure he enjoys what she is doing. They both agree to enjoy the performance and food and toast together. At another scene, the Crown Prince is yawning while watching another performance. A man beside him says it is not bad, and the Crown Prince agrees that imperial music follows strict tradition, but he thinks it is repetitive and boring. He expects the next performance to be the same. The man then says the next performance is by Count Lopez, and the Crown Prince reacts, asking if that is the brother of the lady they saw earlier. I feel like everything is slowly building up to something big. The other man tells the Crown Prince that Edward is indeed Count Lopez, but more importantly, he is a descendant of the legendary Eduardo Lopez. The Crown Prince reacts in shock and asks if he is truly a descendant of Lopez. The man then explains that Edward Lopez was the Crown Prince's classmate at the End Royale Academy. The Crown Prince replies that the name does not sound familiar, and says Edward did not stand out in school, but now that he is performing at the Founding Festival, he must have improved greatly. He adds that being Lady Ariana's brother makes him worth watching. Just then, the announcer calls the next stage performance, introducing Count Edward Lopez and his piece titled Transcendental Love. Elena walks onto the stage with Edward. Elena thinks in her mind that after today, both capital citizens and foreign nobles will remember her name, and she believes she will shine as the main star of the Founding Festival, thinking she is the protagonist. Then, Elena begins singing, with lyrics about hearing footsteps beyond a maze. The crowd reacts strongly, saying it is powerful and amazing. Ariana also listens and thinks the music is wonderful, while Dante watches Ariana smile. Elena continues singing with strange and intense lyrics. Suddenly, the performance is interrupted when Furzin rushes into the auditorium and grabs Edward by the shirt, accusing him of stealing their song and saying he will kill him. He claims Edward shamelessly stole Karka's sacred ceremonial song and cannot be tolerated. Edward thinks in shock and denies it, saying there is a misunderstanding and he did not steal anything. Furzin insists he claimed to be the composer and calls him a thief, while Edward insists he is the composer. The crowd reacts in confusion. Furzin continues holding Edward and calls him a shameless thief, while Edward struggles and tells him to let go. Suddenly, the Emperor arrives and asks what is happening. Edward feels relieved, thinking the Emperor's presence will stop Furzin. The Emperor demands an explanation from Karka's representative, and Furzin says Edward stole their sacred song and insulted their founding marquis with disrespectful lyrics, asking for permission to execute him. Edward is shocked when he hears this demand. I'm really eager to know what's going to happen to him. The Emperor then says that for now, the performance should be temporarily stopped, and everyone should enjoy the other festival events while the matter is resolved, and the show will resume later. After this, people begin murmuring and questioning if the Karka envoy's claim is true, saying that if it is, Count Lopez has committed a serious crime. Elena stands in the crowd, thinking that this must be a misunderstanding, and tells herself to wait, believing her brother will return safely. In the next scene, the Emperor sits with others as a manuscript is handed to him. The man giving it says it is the Karka ceremonial music. The Emperor then calls Marquis Roman and orders him to compare it with Count Lopez's composition. Marquis Roman studies both and says that the structure and progressions are too similar, and by imperial law standards, it counts as plagiarism. Edward immediately shouts that even if it is similar, it must be a coincidence, saying he has never been to Karka and could not have stolen it. Furzin responds that the ceremonial music is sacred and given by their desert god to Karka, and calling it a coincidence is blasphemy. He also says the lyrics insult their founding marquis and asks the Emperor for punishment. The Emperor asks for Count Lopez's sheet music. When he sees it, he thinks about the lyrics describing a labyrinth, a lover, and a bull, and he realizes it matches a satirical tale about Karka. He recalls that Karka's founding myth tells of a hero who rescued a princess from a labyrinth and defeated a giant cow-like monster, later founding the nation. However, a mocking version says a dark sorcerer caused the hero to mistake the cow monster for the princess, leading to a false love story. The Emperor thinks this kind of mockery caused Karka to close its diplomacy in the past, and only through the Duke did relations improve, leading to trade and military agreements. Now he sees this incident as dangerous for that balance. The Emperor tells Furzin that he understands the insult and apologizes on behalf of the Empire. Furzin accepts the apology. Then Edward shouts at the Emperor, asking why he believes outsiders over his own citizens. I feel like this situation is getting more and more out of control. One of the counts hears this and becomes shocked, asking if he just said barbarians. Marquis Roman then adds that he also called them uncivilized. The Emperor hears this and is shocked, thinking that the Karka people have suffered from being treated like beasts, so the word is a very painful point for them. At that moment, Furzin clenches his fist and asks the Emperor to allow him to duel Edward. Edward is shocked and thinks that in a duel, one of them must die. Furzin bows and says he only wanted to demand a finger for proof, but since his nation has been insulted, he cannot ignore it anymore. The Emperor then says he can no longer overlook Edward's behavior and shouts at him to be silent, asking why he caused such chaos at the sacred festival. Edward pleads and says there has been a mistake, and that if he duels, he will surely die. Just then, Ariana enters and says to the Emperor to listen to her brother. Edward is shocked to see her. The Emperor is also surprised and says he understands her feelings, but the accusations are clear. Ariana then says that if her brother did not commit the crime, there is another way. She tells Edward the only way to survive is to admit the truth that the music is not his, and confess that he stole it. Edward is terrified and lowers his head. Ariana then asks Marquis Roman how many bars match the Karka ceremonial music, and he answers that 12 bars overlap while the rest are new. Ariana says this proves the music is not his work, and that he cannot create something new. Edward is shocked, and Ariana asks him if that is right. Edward shouts no in panic. Furzin begins to smile. Edward thinks that if he denies it, Furzin will demand a duel, and he feels trapped. Finally, Edward clenches his fist and confesses that the music is not his, and that he stole another person's sheet music and lied. Marquis Roman and the Emperor both lower their heads in shock. Edward then says there are witnesses to support his claim. Ariana responds by telling him not to worry and that she will help him. Loki, I'm glad that all these has happened to Edward. In another scene, Marquis Roman is discussing with Luis, Ruben, and Lorelei. Luis says that it is correct and confirms Count Lopez did not compose any of the music, and not even a single note from the Lopez family is his. Lorelei then says they all trusted Count Lopez's creativity until recently, and during the unfair treatment. Ruferson adds that they discovered someone else was behind all the compositions. Marquis Roman asks who it is. One of them raises his hand and says, Lady Ariana Lopez. Luis confirms it is true, and Ruferson explains that all the music belongs to her and she even proves her composing skills, so they change their loyalty. Marquis Roman then asks if Count Lopez did not compose even a single piece in the past 1 or 2 years. Later on, Edward is tied to a chair as Ariana arrives and asks if the investigation is complete. Edward says the sheet music was taken from the black market and belongs to an unknown deceased composer. Ariana says he has done well, and now the world will know her brother is a shameless thief. Edward shouts at her, calling her a witch and blaming her for ruining the Lopez family honor. Ariana replies that it is not her, but him who destroyed their grandfather's pride and dishonored the family. Edward shouts again and accuses her of hiding sheet music in the secret safe. Ariana leaves, saying she has things to do, while Edward keeps shouting. Later, people discuss the plagiarism outside, saying all Lopez family music belongs to Lady Ariana, while Elena insists her brother is brilliant but gets questioned and confused. The festival resumes, announcing Lady Ariana's performance is the final stage, and everyone is shocked. Inside, people talk about how hard it is to believe all operas were composed by her, and they wait for confirmation as the performance begins with a girl being chased by a scary figure. The musical performance continues as a young girl plays with some fairies, and people in the crowd are amazed by it. Suddenly, Rosalind comes up and begins singing while the instrumental music starts playing, and they perform until it finally ends. Someone from the crowd stands up and asks if it is already over, and says time passed so fast. One man then stands and says, "Bravo," and he says it is more than believable that the Duchess composed all of the Lopez family's music, calling it mesmerizing and saying every note is perfect, and he is still shaking from the trio. Then Ariana comes to the stage and bows, and she thinks in her mind that this is what it feels like to see people enjoy her music. And it feels more overwhelming than revenge and makes her very happy. And she wants to know how Dante felt, wondering if her music moved his heart too. I felt like I was right there with her emotions. Later, we see 2 men talking, and they say they see Count Lopez, and they are shocked that he still shows his face. Edward appears, covering himself with a coat, and thinks in his mind that it is bad that people still recognize him. Then he sees a newspaper that says Ariana Heigenberg captivates the imperial court, and he thinks angrily about how the empire spreads it everywhere. A guard stops him, and Edward says he is here to see Sir Leonard. Inside, Edward begs Sir Leonard for one more chance, but Leonard says even if he gives it, no one will accept music from a thief, and asks who knows what he stole this time. Edward says Ariana started it, but he completed it, so it is still partly his music. Leonard then says Lady Ariana has released the original Lopez Opera House compositions, untouched, and they are more perfect, saying all his changes ruined them. Another man says it is skillful to ruin such beautiful music, and if Edward had not interfered, the opera would be more successful. Edward becomes furious. Leonard then tells him to repay 2,004.8 billion cardinal by tomorrow, including interest, and says if he cannot pay, they will collect it. Edward panics and thinks he cannot raise such a huge amount overnight, and wonders if his noble title can still save him. Bro is losing it. At Duke Heigenberg's residence, Ariana is seated reading a letter, and the letter states that, as she assured, Edward Lopez has given up his count title. She then says that with many businessmen around, buying and selling titles is not uncommon, and she thinks that the trade ships will return soon, so he must have believed he could buy it back later. She then calls him foolish. Ariana also thinks that she can now buy the title herself using the inheritance left by her grandfather, and she remembers that by imperial law, unmarried women cannot own property. But her grandfather created a special clause in the imperial bank so that only she can access it once she becomes an adult, even though they once forced it from her using his dying blood on the contract. She then says she will never let them take anything from her again. As she walks in the corridor, she overhears people talking about buying trade company stocks, with one worrying about his sister's dowry, and another saying he might invest to marry her into a better family, while another advises waiting. Ariana interrupts and says the price has already peaked, and waiting will not change anything, so they should hold. Sophie agrees, saying it is advice from her lady. 3 days later, Sophie reads a newspaper and sees that the Eastern Ocean Trading Company's ship has sunk, all goods have disappeared, and there are suspicions of planned fraud, and she panics, thinking she would have invested everything if she had not listened. As a result, at Count Lopez's residence, we see Edward lying on a couch with bottles around him, shouting for more alcohol, while Elena enters and asks what they will do now. He tells her to stop shouting and says his head hurts, and she thinks he looks pathetic and suggests going to the estate. She then thinks they could still live well by raising taxes, but Edward shouts that there is no estate because he already sold it with the title. Elena is shocked and asks how he could sell their noble titles, and he smashes a bottle and blames Ariana, saying she caused their ruin and that their father should have dealt with her from the beginning. Elena speaks to Edward and asks what he is talking about, and Edward tells her to shut up, stop bothering him, and get lost. Just then, Adolf arrives at the door and calls out for Lady Elena, saying it is him. Edward then tells Elena that her husband-to-be has arrived. Adolf comes in with an overgrown beard and greets Elena warmly, calling her his beloved. He thinks in his mind that, after being abandoned by his family with nothing, his last hope is to become the son-in-law of the Count's family. Adolf then speaks to Elena and says he heard strange rumors on his way, and Elena asks what he means. He explains that people are saying the Duchess of Heigenberg has taken over the Lopez title, but he believes that must be nonsense because a woman cannot inherit a noble title. Then he notices Elena's shocked face and Edward's shock, and Edward asks what he just said. Edward suddenly rushes forward and shouts that the Lopez title has been taken by that woman, while Elena holds her head and says everything is falling apart in an instant. Elena thinks she was supposed to become the Empire's top soprano and the brightest star of society. Edward then says he must reclaim the title no matter what. Moreover, we see Dante and Ariana standing together while people in the crowd whisper about them, saying the Duke fell for the Duchess's talent first and that it is very romantic. Another lady says she wants to use Ariana's festival piece for her ball, and another says she just wants to speak to Ariana even once. Suddenly, Edward calls Ariana's name in anger, and everyone turns to look. People whisper that Count Lopez is there even though he sold his title. A guard tells Ariana that Edward forced his way in to beg for forgiveness. Our girl says to let him be. Edward then says Ariana protected the family and stopped it from falling into the wrong hands. Ariana replies that he has no right to say that after selling the title. Edward shouts that moneylenders forced him, and he had no choice, or he would have been killed. Ariana thinks he still blames others. Edward then begs for forgiveness, saying he regrets everything and asks for one more chance as a family. Elena calls out to Ariana, and Ariana acknowledges Edward's apology, but then says she knows his real reason is the title, and that they are no longer family, telling him not to come back again with a calm smile. I expected her to have done this sooner. People immediately start murmuring, and someone says that siblings can be very shameless together. Another person says that Lady Elena once said Lucas tried to force himself on her, but in reality they were deeply in love, and that she even received fertility medicine many times, which shocks everyone. As Elena hears this, she becomes very angry and starts shouting at Ariana, saying she is doing all this because the Marquis fell for her and calling it petty and childish. Elena continues speaking and says Ariana is not the only villain, because even if it was not her, anyone would have hated Ariana. She says Ariana always acted superior, taught her how to behave properly, lent old dresses for tea parties while acting kind but making her feel small, and always showed that she was a noble while Elena was just a commoner. Elena says the Marquis got tired of Ariana and chose her instead and calls Ariana unbearable and insufferable. Ariana responds calmly by saying right, and Elena thinks in her mind about whether it was her fault or if others hated Ariana because she was not good enough, or even if her family tried to kill her for the same reason, but she says she cannot reach an answer until now. Ariana then speaks and asks why Elena never felt inferior to their elder brother, but only to her. And Elena says it is because Ariana always looked down on her. Ariana replies that Elena was just choosing her because she was the weakest target, and says she should not hide cruelty behind feelings of inferiority. Ariana then turns away, but Elena continues shouting that their brother was right and Ariana was the reason for the family's disaster. Ariana stops and asks what she means, and Elena says their father once tried to get rid of Ariana, and even he could not stand her, saying she was hated by everyone. At that moment, Dante suddenly points a dagger at Elena and tells her to stop, saying, unlike his wife, he will not tolerate insects. Furthermore, Dante tells the guard to take Elena away, and the guard answers, "Yes, my lord." Ariana then replays Elena's words in her mind about their father once trying to get rid of her, and she thinks that this means there are still things she does not know. She also thinks she has been getting frequent headaches and that today feels worse. Suddenly, Ariana collapses to the ground, and Dante immediately shouts her name in shock. Ariana is later lying on a bed while Dante, a doctor, Sophie, and Leo stand in front of her. The doctor says she has been overworking herself and not sleeping well, and asks if something has been troubling her. Sophie says she has been too focused on composing and blames herself. The doctor says it is not serious and she will recover if she rests and eats properly. After the others leave, Dante stays alone with Ariana and says he feels weak seeing her like this, and he thinks back to a memory of when he first saw someone looking at him with deep trust like a savior. He tells Ariana to wake up and says he has already dealt with her enemies, so now she must repay him for saving her. Leo then comes in and reports that another assassin has been captured, and Dante says he will interrogate him after sunrise. As a result, later that night, Ariana wakes up and wonders why she's in the bedroom, then remembers she fainted in the banquet hall and thinks she did not expect to pass out. She sits up and sees Dante sleeping in a chair beside her and thinks he stayed with her all night. She looks at him and thinks he looks like a sculpture under the moonlight, notices his features and thinks he looks younger and somehow familiar, like she has seen him before. While she is touching his lips, Dante suddenly wakes up and asks what she is doing, and she gets shocked and falls onto him. Now that's some Z-World magic. Ariana starts to doze off and thinks in her mind about what she should do. She tells Dante she is sorry and says she thought she was going to fall and acted on instinct, but he interrupts her and tells her to keep going. She then pretends to fall and hits her head against his chest. Dante says this is quite bold, and she replies that she was just trying to get up and asks him to adjust his posture a little. Instead of adjusting, he turns over and pulls her onto the bed, then tells her to adjust his posture like that. Ariana shouts no, and then apologizes, calling him Your Grace, saying she was not fully awake earlier, so it was a mistake, and asks for forgiveness. Dante smiles and tells her to check again and says it is fine because they are married. Ariana agrees, and then he leans in and kisses her. He tells her it is her turn to repay him for saving her, and Ariana is shocked. She then says she remembers a little and thinks the forest where the music festival stage was held is part of her memory and may be connected to what happened there. She asks him when they first met. The next morning, Ariana is with maids and a doctor, and the doctor says she has recovered well and that eating and rest have helped. She says she slept well but woke briefly at dawn and then remembers last night, including Dante saying the first woman he kissed was her and telling her it was a hint about their past, which she finds absurd and confusing. She thinks he refused to explain and left in the morning. She asks the doctor where Dante is, and the doctor says he went to the underground of the Imperial Palace. Ariana thinks it might be the dungeon, and then sits up and asks if she can go out for a short trip to the city. I did not expect the mystery to deepen even more at this point. Sophie reacts in shock and says that Ariana still needs to rest, but Ariana brightens up and says that a little sunlight and a short walk can help, asking the doctor to confirm it. The doctor laughs and agrees, but says it must be for a very short time. Ariana then says she will go out immediately. Leo responds by saying he will assign a knight and a coachman for her escort and asks where she wants to go. Ariana quickly replies that she wants to go to the headquarters of the Morning of the Empire newspaper. Now, at the Morning of the Empire newspaper headquarters, Elias welcomes Ariana and says they were shocked when she collapsed at the banquet and asks if she is better, also saying he planned to visit her. Ariana replies that she is much better and thinks he is very sociable and close to the Duke since childhood. Elias says she is the biggest topic of the founding festival and requests an interview. Elias, the owner of the newspaper, joins and says she has never accepted an interview before and does not want to pressure her, though it would be very beneficial for the paper. Our girl smiles and thinks the conversation has become easier, then agrees to give her first interview and even allows photos and sharing her composing instrument. Elias becomes very happy. Ariana then asks to see past newspapers, and Elias offers 1 month of records, but she asks specifically for the year 314. Elias pauses and says that it is 10 years ago, then takes her to the archive room where all issues are stored. Ariana goes through the shelves and sees many years, including a headline about Dante Heigenberg becoming Duke. She then searches deeper into the year 314 issues, thinking nothing special at first, until she notices earlier issues and suddenly finds a headline saying the youngest son of the Heigenberg family has gone missing. She is shocked and widens her eyes. In addition to what we see, Ariana reads a newspaper headline that says, "Suspected to have fallen into the upper release of the Aran River. Search efforts are difficult due to a lack of witnesses." She says the publication date is February 10th, year 314. Suddenly, she feels pain in her head and holds it. She thinks that February 10th is the day she lost her mother and grandfather in a carriage accident. As a result, she gets a glimpse of that past moment and remembers running away from scary creatures. A man tells her, "If you don't want to die, open your eyes. If you lose consciousness now, you will die." She realizes that the man is Dante and thinks he is involved in that memory. Then Elias arrives with a lamp and asks how the investigation is going, Duchess. He sees her pain and rushes to her, asking if she is all right. Ariana asks him if the Marquis, an old friend of the Duke, is someone he has known since childhood. Elias says yes. She then asks about the Duke's childhood story from the newspaper. Elias tries to respond and mentions he saw the newspaper, but his words are unclear as he says he goes to it again. Ariana insists and asks him to tell her, "I would have pushed for answers too." They both sit back against a shelf, and Elias explains that Lord Heigenberg was thrown into the river by his half-brothers after years of abuse. Dante was a prodigy in martial arts and studies, and their jealousy led them to knock him unconscious and push him into the river in winter, where the current was strong. He says it was a miracle Dante survived, and that is all he knows. Our girl is still thinking about the Aran River. She then goes outside and tells the carriage driver to take her to the Imperial Palace. As she is about to enter the carriage, Elias suddenly appears and shouts that she is unwell and should not go. Just when we think things settle, Leo arrives and says, "My lady, before I even seek your own will." Ariana then asks Leo to guide her to his grace, the Duke, saying she heard he is in the underground chambers. Leo replies that this way, please, and leads her. In addition, we're taken to the underground chambers where Leo is stretching his hand further and stretching his hand further. Then he tells Ariana to wait for a moment while he informs the master. She agrees and stays back. Ariana then looks around the room and notices pictures on the wall. She thinks that the face looks too pale, with purple tones, and the nose and mouth look hollow, like a mark. She remembers that it is the same face she saw in her dream and even recreated on stage. She then asks a nearby guard who the person on the wanted poster is. The guard explains that the man, who recently entered the Imperial Palace, was captured last night, and that the interrogation will soon reveal the mastermind, so there is no need to worry. Ariana is shocked and thinks that Dante is with that man right now. Dante comes out of the room and calls Ariana by her name. He tells her she has become thinner, even though he told her to eat well. Ariana then asks him if she can see the prisoner from the wanted poster in person. Dante turns and agrees to go with her. Leo warns that the interrogation room has terrible tools and is not a place for a lady, but Dante says she's not that weak. Dante then opens the door and they see the tied-up prisoner from the poster. Ariana looks at him and thinks that seeing him in person confirms it, and she has seen him a very long time ago. On the one hand, Ariana suddenly recalls a memory inside a carriage. We're introduced to Cecilia Lopez, her mother, who is crying and saying she still cannot believe her husband had an affair and even a hidden daughter. Her grandfather, Eduardo, responds calmly that it is just the two of them there. Cecilia then asks if Ariana is asleep, and Eduardo confirms she is sleeping. He tells Cecilia to divorce the man, saying they should take his wealth and title and leave him with nothing. Cecilia worries about people talking and staining the Lopez family name, but Eduardo says that does not matter. Only her happiness and the grandchildren's happiness matter. He puts a hand on her shoulder. Cecilia apologizes for worrying him, and he tells her to take care of her heart. As if that was not enough, a man suddenly comes from the forest, jumps onto the carriage, and they are attacked. Our girl is actually faking sleep while everything is happening in the carriage. She is still awake and thinking in her mind that she was not supposed to come on this trip at all. Only her mother, Cecilia Lopez, and her grandfather Eduardo were meant to go, but she secretly sneaked into the carriage and kept pretending to be asleep so they would not make her get down. She wonders if she should stop pretending and get up to hug her mother. She remembers her mother as someone who always smiles like sunshine, but also thinks her father makes her sad because he drinks all the time, goes out with single ladies, and comes home the next day smelling like strange flowers, which always makes her mother cry alone. Meanwhile, Eduardo speaks, telling Cecilia that when they reach the territory, she should rest, and he will come after finishing work. Cecilia asks if there is another issue besides the divorce, and he begins to speak about Janice. Eduardo explains that something happened to Janice, and Ariana thinks she has not seen Janice lately, remembering her as the prettiest and kindest among the singing ladies and wondering what it means. He says Janice had been with the second prince's group and even went to a secret meeting. She was shaking and confessed that she overheard something she should not have. Eduardo recalls Janice saying she heard plans about assassinating the crown prince. Cecilia reacts in shock and says Janice is dead, and Eduardo explains that the second prince's group must have removed her. Cecilia then worries that Eduardo is also in danger, but he says he already contacted a missionary group and hired guards who are protecting the carriage. She asks how he could handle it alone and what he plans to do. He says he must inform the emperor of his duty and promises nothing will happen to them or the grandchildren. He also says he has enough connections and people who rely on his music to protect them. Just when we think things are safe, the carriage suddenly shakes and Cecilia asks what is happening. As a result, a knife suddenly goes through Eduardo's chest. Cecilia screams father as Eduardo is stabbed in the chest and blood comes from his mouth. A man steps into the carriage and says to her that she picked their mercenary group, Dawn Corpse, and that she has no luck. He removes the knife from Eduardo, and Eduardo coughs while dying. With his last strength, he tells Cecilia to run away. At that moment, Ariana wakes up in shock, trembling, and calls out for Grandpa. The killer then asks why a child is there. Ariana climbs onto her mother, and he insults people in the arts, saying they should only play instruments and not get involved in important matters. Cecilia carries Ariana and runs while the killer shouts that they will be caught anyway and should give up. Cecilia drops Ariana and tells her that she must help her mother from here on. She tells her that if she keeps running without looking back, she will reach the forest end, find a village, hide among people, and go to the security office. Ariana cries and says no and wants her mother to come too. Cecilia says it is okay and tells her she will follow right after and asks if she can do it for her. She pushes Ariana and tells her to go. Ariana remembers running without looking back. As she runs, she reaches a cliff and stops. The killer appears behind her and tells her to stop and come back, saying there is a big bounty on her, and he will take a long vacation after finishing the job. The cliff begins to crack, and Ariana is about to fall. She thinks she must escape and says sorry to her mother. The killer reacts in shock as she falls into the water. As if that was not enough, Dante jumps into the water, shouting for her to snap out of it. He pulls her out and holds her, shouting that she must stay with him. He then gives her mouth-to-mouth CPR to save her. Our girl sits and thinks in her mind that the brother who saved her had beautiful ruby-like eyes and spoke many things she could not understand. Dante asks her if her siblings pushed her into the river because her mother was also a concubine. She asks him what a concubine is, and he asks again who pushed her in. Ariana says she does not know, only remembering a terrifying face, and she starts shaking. Dante tells her they need to go back again, pulls her close, and says he never planned to save her. But since she sees him as her savior, she cannot selfishly die. Ariana says she will not die. Dante says he hates feelings more than death and must not fail. Ariana asks how he can still be alive when he is losing so much blood. And he says, that would mean death. Our girl starts crying in shock as Dante pats her and hugs her. He tells her it is a secret, but he cried when his mother died, so she can cry only for one day, because crybabies cannot get revenge. Ariana thinks in her mind if she is supposed to take revenge on the pale-faced man. Dante tells her that fighting with the sword is the easiest way. But if that does not work, she must find another way and use what she is good at. Ariana says she is good at singing, and he jokes that it sounds like breaking ears with sound waves. He then tells her to find her own way and use her imagination. Ariana feels that he is blunt, but still comforting. Moreover, we see Ariana and Dante walking through the forest. She thinks he said he would return to the capital and take revenge on those who insulted him because of his birth. At night, they rest in caves, and during the day, they keep walking. Dante also says that even as a bastard, if he achieves something great, he can become the heir and claim his title with pride. On the third day, Ariana tells him she will keep watch because he has not slept for 2 nights. He tells her to stop being annoying and go inside. She then offers to sing him a lullaby, and he says even a lullaby will not help him sleep. I feel like both of them are carrying too much pain for their age. Our girl pulls Dante's hands and tells him her mother used to fall asleep when she sang. She asks him to just lie down and try it. He calls her persistent and then lies down while she starts singing. She sings about a bright moonlit night, a starlit sky, closing eyes gently, following starlight, finding dreams and singing and dancing with fairies under the moonlight. Dante's eyes slowly close and he falls asleep. The next day, a strong storm appears. Dante carries Ariana on his back and tells her not to pass out because if she sleeps now, she might never wake up. He asks her if she is good at singing. Ariana says she has a dream. Dante asks what it is, and she says she wants to create a place where music plays, where people sing and dance. He asks if it is an opera house, and she agrees, and says she wants to own one and name it Paradise. He says it sounds tacky and laughs. Ariana then asks his name. He says Dante Heigenberg and tells her she should remember it. He also says she is a noble girl and he will drop her at her mansion, so she should give her full name. She says, Ariana Lopez. Her vision becomes blurry and she feels cold and confused, then everything blacks out. As a result, in the present, Ariana wakes up with tears in her eyes after remembering everything. Dante calls her name, and she looks at him and thinks about his ruby-like eyes. She says she remembers everything, that she had forgotten after waking up in the mansion, even about her mother and grandfather's deaths. She says she collapsed again when she heard about the funeral and asks why he did not tell her. Dante says she remembered everything from the start and says she was the one who was unfairly forgotten. Ariana apologizes for forgetting and thanks him, saying she will never forget that he saved her. They lock fingers and Dante kisses her hand, saying she is the only one he ever saved, and she must never forget that. These two are destined to be with each other. Our girl smiles and tells Dante that she will surely repay him for saving her. Dante asks how she will repay him and says it is a difficult question, because a life debt must be repaid with a life. He then moves closer and says that for now she should give him all her breath. He leans in as if to kiss her, but notices she is trembling. He asks why she is shaking, and Ariana turns away and says it is him making her tremble. Ariana then thinks to herself that this is right, and she faces him again and calls him Duke. Dante asks if they should go home, but she says no and asks to meet the prisoner he questioned again. He understands and says she must want revenge. In the next scene, Dante opens the prison cell where the tied-up prisoner is held. He tells the man that Ariana wants a personal talk with him and orders him to confess only the truth. Ariana looks at the prisoner and thinks he looks like an ordinary weak man, yet he caused the cruel death of her mother and grandfather. Dante leans toward her and tells her she can choose to kill him, or even take time and play with him, then gives her a dagger. The prisoner starts begging for mercy. Ariana thinks that this man is just a tool, and the real person behind it is still out there. However, Ariana looks at Dante and tells him not to say such scary things, and says interrogation is his job. She gives the dagger back to him. She then thinks in her mind that this is good because the enemy is confused and does not know if she remembers that day or not, and that when a criminal is questioned, the real culprit will likely come rushing in because they fear the truth. She is thinking more carefully instead of reacting with emotions. A soldier who arrives and greets Dante and Ariana, saying he came to ensure they have everything they need after hearing about their visit. Ariana notices his eagle emblem and thinks in her mind that he is an imperial soldier. She realizes he must be sent by the crown prince and believes he is worried that Dante's interrogation will reveal something that happened 10 years ago. She also thinks that the crown prince does not know she was there back then, and if he did, she would have already been killed. She concludes that the soldier must have hidden her existence from his master because he could not kill her, so he stayed silent. Ariana then tells Dante to return to the palace and whispers that she will explain later. She smiles and tells him he promised to take care of her all day, and asks him to continue what they were doing before. Dante smiles, leans close, and whispers that she is now even using seduction, saying he will play along and will not leave her side, then decides they will return for now. In the carriage, Ariana sits and looks out the window while Dante tells her he wants to be part of her plan and does not like just watching from the side. Ariana thinks she wants to be honest with him. She then tells him that just before her mother and grandfather were murdered, they had a conversation. Dante asks if it was about the crown prince. She looks down and confirms after telling him everything. Dante says he suspected it and is shocked that the crown prince committed such acts, then concludes that her new target for revenge is the crown prince. Ariana agrees and tells him he can leave her if he wants because it is treason. Dante reacts and asks what she said. Ariana says just mentioning the crown prince as an enemy is already treason. However, Dante interrupts and says he finds it interesting. He says he respects it and that staying by her side is exciting, so he will not leave her, smiling as he speaks. Dante tells Ariana that she keeps making his days interesting without even trying, while he plays with her hair. He says it is amazing. Ariana thinks in her mind that he keeps calling everything fun and is teasing her again. Dante then speaks about rumors of dirty plans during the crown prince's rise to power. Ariana asks if it is true, and he says that in battle, hidden secrets are often exposed easily. Dante tells our girl something important. He says the assassin he questioned was not hired by the crown prince, but by her father. Ariana's eyes widen in shock. He continues that her mother was going to file for divorce at that time, and her father was supposed to lose his status and become a commoner. Dante explains that her father tried to avoid the divorce and joined with the crown prince, who also wanted to remove her maternal grandfather. Ariana's tears fall as she realizes she still has hidden anger inside. Dante tells her not to cry, holds her face, and says she can pay them all back. As if that was not enough, we shift to the palace where a man reports to the crown prince that the visit to the prison seemed to have no hidden purpose, only interrogation of a traitor, and that Ariana seemed to be there just to find her husband. The crown prince sits on his throne and thinks that Ariana might have remembered what happened 10 years ago after meeting the prisoner. He fears that the Duke and Emperor will investigate the case, and the truth about his actions will come out. He becomes angry and breaks a glass while a maid cleans it. He thinks he should have killed Janice's family and the musician's family from the start. He shouts at the maid to bring a new glass and fill it. He then thinks the biggest problem is the Duke and calls him an arrogant child who keeps interfering. He also thinks that without the Duke, Ariana would be nothing, and wonders if she can be separated from him while he drinks wine. I feel like everything is slowly connecting toward a big conflict. At another scene, Lucas is inside a prison with his hands chained. A guard opens the cell and tells prisoner 3615 that he is temporarily pardoned, but his fate depends on the decision of high-ranking people, so he must carry out his duties with sincerity. Lucas smiles when he hears this. The next day, Ariana is about to enter a carriage when 3 guards appear. They bow to her, and all say they will protect her with sincerity. Ariana is confused and asks where they came from. Dante replies that they came from the shadows. Ariana then thinks in her mind that they are the Shadow Knights of Marcus Heigenberg and remembers their concealment technique, thinking it feels like magic. Dante tells her that the Crown Prince is suspicious and has even sent soldiers to the prison, so he may watch them for a while. One guard says they will protect Ariana at any time as ordered by their master, and another says he will teach her simple hand signals. Ariana feels safer traveling with them. Dante watches Ariana smile as she sits in the carriage. Ariana tells the driver to go to the Bel Air newspaper, and the driver agrees. Ariana thinks in her mind that it is a small newspaper that few people know, but it will help her plan. She remembers that 5 years later, a prisoner was executed in a square and shouted before dying that the Crown Prince killed his brother. She also thinks the story was forgotten because there was no proof, and that the newspaper was owned by the condemned man. She decides to meet him before he dies and wonders who the owner of the Bel Air newspaper is. She arrives at the building and rings the bell, thinking the man is full of hatred for the Crown Prince, like her. As a result, she enters the office and the man welcomes her. When he sees her, his eyes widen. Ariana thinks he looks like the condemned prisoner from before. The man then calls her Miss Lily. Ariana thinks only people from the Lopez Opera House, where her maternal grandfather lived, use that name. Ariana asks the man who he is and how he knows her. The man laughs and says there is no way someone would not know the Duchess, Ariana. She then asks if he worked at the Lopez Opera House, and his eyes widen. Ariana thinks in her mind that she does not recognize his face, and something feels wrong. She then asks if he is Mr. Hoffman. His reaction becomes even more shocked. Our girl recalls that Mr. Hoffman was the sound technician at the Lopez Opera House and also the father of Janice, the prima soprano. She remembers Janice was the leading soprano during her grandfather's time, but she suddenly disappeared and was later found dead in an inn, which she believes was part of the Crown Prince's scheme. After that, Mr. Hoffman vanished. Ariana asks why he is here and what happened to his face. He tells her to come inside first. They go inside, and he removes his face covering and says he is glad to see her again, calling her Lily and then Duchess. He explains that he had to hide because of certain circumstances and warns her that staying there is dangerous. He tells her to leave immediately. As a result, Ariana thinks that Mr. Hoffman must be the prisoner who was once caught while guarding evidence about the Crown Prince killing her brother, and that he must hate the Crown Prince just like her. She realizes he lost his daughter, Janice. Tears form in her eyes, and she asks if he knew about her grandfather and mother. He asks how she knows about that, and she says she is the only one who knows. She tells him he must have been gathering evidence to avenge Janice. He falls back into his chair and asks how much she knows, and she replies everything about her grandfather, mother, and Janice, and that she will take revenge for all of them. Moreover, the scene shifts back to the carriage. It arrives at a destination, and Ariana steps out, asking what is happening. She sees another carriage blocking the way, and thinks it is a royal carriage. A guard then comes to her and greets her, saying the Crown Prince has requested a private audience. My heart is beating really fast right now. In addition, we're introduced to Ariana as Sophie, who is inside the carriage, begs her not to go because the Duke is not there. Ariana thinks in her mind that this is exactly why the Crown Prince chose this timing, but if she refuses, his suspicions may grow. She tells Sophie that the Shadow Knights are with her and she will be fine, then steps out of the carriage and walks toward the Crown Prince's carriage. She thinks in her mind that she must avoid provoking the Crown Prince as much as possible. A guard leads her inside and tells her to wait. Ariana thinks she should leave a signal in case she does not return in 10 minutes, so she sends a signal for the Shadow Knights to understand and come rescue her. Ariana hears someone call her name and turns to see Lucas. She thinks in her mind that he is here and wonders what he is doing. Lucas says the Crown Prince gave him a chance and that if he apologizes to Ariana and gets forgiveness, he will be pardoned. Ariana thinks he is plotting something. Lucas then kneels and begs for forgiveness, saying he was wrong and should not have looked at another woman. Ariana refuses and says she is not interested in him, turning away and saying his nickname is disgusting. Lucas argues that they were good together and that he recognized her talent first, and and she was grateful to him. He then stares at her, and Ariana thinks in her mind why he is looking at her like that. She checks the mirror and thinks she has something on her face, then notices a bug bite mark on her neck. Lucas wrongly assumes she gave her body to the Duke. Ariana thinks his mind always jumps to dirty thoughts and insults him for being pathetic. Lucas becomes angry, saying she never lets him have her despite gifts and blames her for his actions. He grabs her and injects something into her arm. Ariana tries to speak but cannot, and realizes she cannot move. She becomes weak as Lucas laughs and says she is now his. Oh no. Where is Dante when we need him? Our girl has struggled and thinks in her mind about what Lucas injected into her, trying to move her body while feeling helpless. She says, damn it, and realizes she cannot move. Lucas comes closer and speaks in a twisted way, saying it is only the two of them there and implying no woman returns after being taken by that man. He also says a former fiancé would never accept a body that has been touched by another. Ariana thinks in her mind that she knew he was insane, but not this far gone. Lucas holds her chin and says he is different and will forgive her even if she is already tainted. Ariana watches the clock and thinks she must hold on until the Shadow Knights arrive. Lucas grabs her face and questions who she is waiting for, saying her husband would abandon her if she is defiled and telling her to return to how things were, saying he loves her and forcefully hugs her. Just when things look worse, someone stabs Lucas with a knife marked with the ducal family crest. Our girl thinks in her mind it is Dante. Dante appears at the door and shouts her name, then rushes to support her and asks if she is okay. Ariana can barely speak. Dante looks at Lucas and calls him a filthy bastard. Lucas is still stabbed in the shoulder and begs for help, and Dante sarcastically responds that he will help him. Dante covers Ariana with his coat and carries her away. Knights arrive and tell him that the Crown Prince ordered no one to enter, but Dante tells them to move or die. He also tells them to keep Lucas alive so he can pay for what he did. Dante carries Ariana and asks what she was thinking going there alone. Ariana says it was the Crown Prince's order. Dante tells her she should have refused and blamed him instead, saying he would not have cared. Ariana thinks that refusing would only have made the Crown Prince more suspicious. Dante arrived just in time, but the situation is still very dangerous. Ariana tells Dante that she is fine, and that it is nothing. Dante suddenly shouts at her, asking how she can say it is nothing, and if she understands what could have happened because of that man. Ariana tries to speak, but he interrupts her, asking again why she is like this, his face showing strong emotion as if he is about to cry. Ariana looks into his eyes and thinks that even without words, she can feel his emotions clearly, like eyes are windows to the soul. Dante then tells her not to act recklessly again, and says her life is something he saved and will not let her throw away. In the next scene, our girl lies down and thinks about how long she has been asleep. She hears Dante's voice telling her she is awake. She says she can move now and suddenly hugs him. Dante says she tossed and turned all night and explains that the sedative was not strong enough for lasting harm, but a large amount made it hit suddenly. Ariana feels relieved and asks if he slept. He says he could not sleep and stayed awake all night. Our girl wonders if someone changed her clothes and realizes Dante did it, as he says she looked uncomfortable and kept clinging to him and removing the blanket. She becomes embarrassed and apologizes. They lie quietly for a moment, and Ariana thinks he looks pale and wonders if he is angry or just tired. She asks if he has not slept at all, and he says no, and cannot even remember when he last slept. Ariana tells him to rest now and says she will keep watch. Dante remembers Ariana saying earlier that he had not slept for 2 days and smiles. Ariana notices his smile and thinks he smiled. She then asks what he usually does when he cannot sleep. Dante smiles and replies that he does bad things. I feel like this man is always hiding something behind that smile. Ariana thinks in her mind that Dante's bad things are drinking and smoking. She then reflects that these are indeed bad things, but she is still bothered by something else. She remembers it is common knowledge in the capital that Dante often invites female singers into his bedroom, and she wonders about it for a long time. Ariana then asks him what else he does. Dante looks at her and asks what she means. Ariana quickly says, never mind, and then tells him he is a good man. Dante sits up and tells her that whatever he does at night in his room with whoever he invites is his business, but she has misunderstood. He explains that it is true he has invited singers, but he never did anything improper. He only asked them to sing lullabies meant for children. He also tells her that she does not need to do anything she does not want to do. Ariana responds that she is not refusing because she does not want to. She then thinks in her mind that she used to love singing when she was young, but after being humiliated in front of everyone, she stopped singing. She says out loud that the last time she sang was a long time ago. She also thinks the singers Dante brought were likely very skilled, and her current voice might sound bad. Our girl looks down and thinks she should not have brought it up, and feels like she is carrying emotional weight again because of that old memory and praise. Ariana asks Dante to forget what she said and says she will practice singing alone first. Before she can finish, Dante interrupts and tells her to do it right there, to practice there. Ariana thinks to herself that singing there isn't really practice, but she still starts singing. She sings a song about a moonlit night, a starry sky, closing eyes, following starlight, and chasing dreams while singing and dancing with fairies. As she sings, she thinks in her mind that this song holds only happy memories. She continues the song about following moonlight to find dreams, but Dante suddenly interrupts her singing with a kiss, and they exchange kisses for a while. Ariana suddenly says that he's great. Dante then places his head on her shoulder and says he did not want to break down like this, just for tonight. Ariana is shocked and thinks it might be because of what happened earlier with Lucas. Dante then stands up and says, sorry, telling her to rest and that he will step out. Ariana holds his arm and asks him not to go. She thinks in her mind that after collapsing earlier, the only reason she could sleep without nightmares was that he stayed beside her like a shield. She tells him she does not want to spend the night alone. Aw, this is so cute. Want to see more? Comment part 3 below. Until next time, ciao!